Welcome back, everybody, to Cool's Reviews, but not a normal review because I know you guys are probably tired of just hearing about me and Sam talk about movies. So we figured let's do a deep dive and let's bring in some guests that actually know the content. So we're talking about Babe. I'm just kidding. We are actually talking about Whiplash, and it'll make a whole lot more sense once we actually introduce our guests. Perhaps if you watch our channel or have seen their projects, you may already know why. But my name's Keegan. Joining me from Culz is
Sam.
and then we have some awesome guests. We will start with Jor-el.
Hey guys, I'm Jor-el Vaasborg. I'm an actor and an artist and a musician, and I've been in the film, TV, and theater industry for a while.
And I'm Nicholas Miller. I started drumming when I was about 5 years old and took around 15 years of private lessons. And I played drums at Denver School of the Arts, as well as for the Blue Knights Drum Corps. And I currently play in several live performing bands and also do a live streaming electronic project.
And I'm Shane. I also play the drums. I've been playing for about 20 years as well. Not as much drumline stuff as Nick. It sounds like I've been more in the rock and roll scene kind of a thing, but right now I'm playing in a country bluegrass band as well as a couple other projects.
Yeah, see, so right there, you guys should know why we picked this one. I mean, we got a bunch of musicians, and then Jor-el also has like both, vantage points from both music as well as film. So, yeah, this has been a project we've been pretty excited to bring you guys, and we're very thankful that the three of you were able to join us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us on.
Yeah, always fun getting to hang out with you guys, doing the coolest thing.
Yeah, it's been a while, Shane. I think the last time was Mem and Rage, but
yeah, it was a good time. That was a good night.
Yeah.
I'm bummed we didn't do more filming that night.
Right. Hey, maybe this year we can kidnap you for Roswell and bring you down.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
All right. So, yeah, we'll start off with a pretty basic question, but Jor-el, where did you first see Whiplash?
I first saw Whiplash in a classroom when I was going to UCLA. I was in this really cool film acting class with this really great actor and director, Charles Haig. And he would bring in movies that were either about to be released or had just been released that he thought were really good. So he brought in this one. He brought in Birdman, a couple other films that year. And so I saw it there.
I mean, speaking of Birdman, I just introduced Sam to that movie.
That's an interesting movie to talk about. There's a lot there.
Yeah, maybe one day we can do a deep dive on that one. Sam, shh. You know you want to. Nick, what about you?
So I saw this movie when it came out back in 2014. I was recommended this movie by several friends and musicians that were in the CCJA Jazz Arts program, the Colorado Conservatory for the Jazz Arts, led by Paul Romaine, who's a phenomenal jazz drummer in the local Colorado scene. But this movie was really flabbergasting to some and was pretty inspiring to some. And it was kind of all over the board. And it's a very interesting and funny movie.
And then Shane, what about you?
Yeah, my story sounds pretty similar to Nick's. I saw the movie the year it came out when it was on DVD. I just had a lot of musician friends who were like, oh, you're a drummer, you're kind of into the horror, psychological thriller movies. You've seen Whiplash, right? And I honestly was like, no, I don't even know what you're talking about. So I just kind of had to catch up and get with the program, and I checked it out after that.
Yeah, and I think my story is pretty similar. A bunch of people were telling me to go watch it. Obviously, everyone knows I have a stupid amount of movies, and I love watching movies. So they were like, go watch Whiplash. It's fantastic. So I picked it up on Blu-ray and loved it. And yeah, now I'm glad we're finally able to talk about it. And Sam, what about you?
Unlike everyone else here, this is I watched it like a couple of days ago, and I'm pretty fairly new to this, other than I might have potentially seen it with Nick when I was hanging out with him a lot when I was younger, but I don't believe we watched this one.
When you say new to this, do you mean new to watching movies or new to watching this particular movie?
This particular movie.
Oh, good.
I
Okay.
mean, I've definitely watched a lot of movies. I don't have as many or so amount at the back of my car like Keegan does, but I
I was just
definitely
curious because you said I'm new to this.
true. No, I should
I mean,
specify that.
probably
Yeah, no, this
new
movie is
to-
definitely new.
New to kind of like a strictly music oriented sort of like student in music school kind of movie. You know, there's not very many movies that are like this. So
I mean, you and I watched Drumline.
yeah, true. That is one example. I would say they're super different worlds apart, even though they are kind of in the same sort of like theme and concept in the movie. But
Kinda, yeah.
but yeah, definitely we used to watch Drumline all the time. Similar kind of vibe, but
I haven't
I
seen
feel like
Drum.
Drumline's like funny, or like Drumline's kind of more of like a not, I don't want to say a comedy, but kind of like funny Nick Cannon movie, you know. But
yeah,
yeah,
it's like the aspiring student, you know,
yeah,
attempting
yeah,
to,
yeah.
like to become the best of the best and conquer, or not necessarily conquer, but just succeed with flying colors in music despite all odds against them.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there might even be a sequel to Drumline that I've never seen. But I think there's like a
God,
straight to DVD. I'm pretty sure there's like a straight to DVD sequel that I saw, but I could be entirely wrong about
that's
that.
funny. I didn't ever see that one, but
I've never seen it either. I believe it's a thing, but I may or may not be wrong.
yeah, Drumline actually started when I actually got into serious marching corps and percussion and drumline activities. I kind of stopped watching Drumline because it was sort
Yeah.
of a kind of a laughing stock to most of the people there, because it wasn't really considered a very serious movie. It's just more of a Hollywood representation of a cool story. But like real serious marching corps is not at all like you would see in the college Drumline with Nick Cannon.
I mean, I'm sure it's not. If I'm being completely honest, when I was in high school, college, I just had no desire to do any of the drum line, drum corps stuff. I was kind of that kid who it's like, no, I don't want to do anything extracurricular that has to do with school.
Yeah.
I played in a rock band with all the rebellious kids that wanted nothing to do with school any more than they. Now that I'm older, I very much regret not taking that more seriously, because I feel like it would have really helped me out as a player. But just if I'm being perfectly honest, when I was that age, I was like, nah, I'm not doing that. I don't want to be here.
Yeah, I understand.
And then, real quick for our viewers, this is going to have tons of spoilers. So if by chance you haven't watched Whiplash, make sure to turn this off, go watch it, then come back and hear what we have to say about it.
Everyone dies.
They,
Everyone, even the
This
drums.
isn't Rogue One, Jor-el. Come on.
He's decapitated with a symbol.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you don't like, if you don't like seeing a Tom get destroyed, don't watch.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a
pretty.
snare. I don't remember.
Yeah.
It was
I think he
pretty
breaks the whole
intense.
kit. I guess I don't remember either. I think he throws everything.
I rewatched it again today.
There's several parts in the movie where the entire kit is destroyed, and then one part where he's practicing and
Oh
he's
yeah.
beating all over the drum set, and then he just punches a hole through the snare drum.
Yeah.
So I think a good place to start is more a thematic place. Whiplash, to me at least, is pretty similar to two movies, possibly three. One of which is Black Swan. The second, which would probably be a little bit to Birdman, and then more loosely to Sucker Punch. But it's more of like an obsession slash delving into madness a little bit.
Yeah.
Jor-el, how do you feel about the themes?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with I haven't seen Sucker Punch, so I can't speak to that. But I think it's definitely like, well, Birdman is a whole nother movie. I mean, it could be about Birdman, could be about so many different things. So I don't know if I want to get into that, but yeah, definitely. I think it's it definitely has links to Black Swan in the sense of it's about an obsession that kind of takes over and like leads into madness, the ambition to be perfect, right? The and the sacrifices you have to make, in order to quote unquote do that. I feel like Black Swan has a little more I haven't seen that in a while, but I feel like there's a little more about there's a little more of the jealous aspect in Black Swan, where she's really jealous of the other the newer ballerine who's coming in, right?
Yeah, Mia Kunis's character.
Yeah, and that happens a little bit in this film as well with some of the other drummers. But one thing I really like about this movie is just how focused it is. It feels very focused on like its themes, its characters. It's not a big sprawling narrative. It doesn't have all these side plots. Doesn't have it's very everything that's in the movie has to be in the movie, and it's all related around this like theme of do you have to sacrifice for your art, and then what matters more, being the best artist or having kind of a happy life, right?
Mm-hmm.
They talk about in the film how Charlie, I think they're talking about Charlie Parker a lot in the movie, and they mention how he died at 34, but also we're still talking about him, right? So they bring that up.
Yeah, and see, I think one divergent from Black Swan 2 is I forget Miles Teller's character's name, Andrew, because he only calls him Neiman the whole time. I was like, what is his first name?
Yeah.
But his character gets a wake-up call and then can appreciate life and appreciate just loving to play and being not needing to be perfect anymore. Whereas where Natalie Portman,
when does that happen? Like when does he?
When he gets kicked out. Yeah, when he gets kicked out of
when he kicks out, he just stops playing, I think. I don't think he grows to love playing.
No. Yeah,
I'm pretty
sure. I guess you're right.
I watched that because I wanted.
Yeah, he throws his drum set in the closet. He rips all his posters down. I think he just straight up gives up entirely.
He has it in the closet, but he doesn't get rid of it. I don't think he's playing.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely different towards the ending of Black Swan, where she just lets herself get engulfed because she has a wake-up call, but it's before she's really had success. And so she just lets it go and she ends up killing herself at the end.
Well, I think the thing that's different also about Black Swan than this, right, is Black Swan, and I think Darren Aronofsky does this with a few of his movies, right? It seems to take a stance, right? Like if you look at Requiem for a Dream or something, no one's going to watch that movie and go, well, sometimes drugs are good, right? Sure. No, everyone knows you're going to go down this path and it's going to get worse and worse and worse, right? Same thing with Black Swan, right? Whereas in Whiplash, it leaves you with this final performance at the end where he does create the best solo of all time, right? And then he has that look in his eyes. He's looking at J.K. Simmons' character, and he's gives him that look yeah, you did it. This is the shit, right? And it almost points the question is it worth it? Is it not worth it? It doesn't really take a stance, right? You see how all these things affect his life, but it doesn't go don't get obsessed by music. It almost kind of points you in the other direction a little bit.
Yeah, definitely very different than Requiem for a Dream.
Right,
that is for sure. I think that was my first Darren Aronofsky film. Nick, what about you? Thematically wise, what are your takeaways from this one?
So it is an interesting tale because you almost can't really look at it as something that will be or should be looked at as an inspiring takeaway piece for young students that are trying to become famous jazz musicians. And that's just because the kind of the melodramatic nature of Simmons' character, Mr. Fletcher, right? That's his name, or Fletching. Is it Fletching? I believe it's
Terrence Fletcher.
Yeah, Fletcher. So he kind of gives off a pretty negative vibe on the musical experience for students, especially in college. With all of the students kind of like aggressively cussing at each other. And, there's always competition. But when it gets to kind of this unprofessional level of aggression, that's when music starts to not become fun anymore and starts to go into this kind of dark realm of, is this really what music is meant to be? I have had personally much more memorable experiences with teachers that have been able to push me beyond my boundaries normally, but with a much more positively reinforced methodology of teaching. I also have had teachers that are like Mr. Simmons in the movie, or sorry, like Simmons' character in the movie, where teachers, especially band teachers, will become so frustrated that they will, like throw an eraser across the room or something, but not directed towards any student. But again, the concept and the point of the movie is more to be this psychological thriller of like, is it worth it to die for your passion, or is it worth it to like sell yourself to get to the top, or to put on an act for someone else, or to just like take all this pressure. And he does have those breaking moments where he can't take it anymore and like destroys the whole drum set and tackles the shit out of him on stage and starts like trying to beat the shit out of him. But honestly, if you were which I do still think story wise is a cool theme for them to bring up, but I don't think you would ever want to be a jazz teacher and be like, hey, students, they came out with this new drumming movie and you should really watch this movie to get you motivated to play jazz music, because that would be detrimental in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about like unhealthy situations. I mean, he's hurling chairs at them.
Yeah,
I mean,
just
he's the three drummers at the same time are all bleeding out of their hands
yeah.
after
And
like 4 hours.
working them like workhorses. And what's so funny about that particular scene is they're not actually doing anything musically. They're just playing like obnoxiously as fast and as like sporadically, almost like they're having a seizure. And it's like no one would ever even have that in a song. No teacher would be ever forcing three drummers, let alone they wouldn't even be forcing one drummer to just sit there going like ba, 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 ba,
Yeah, I was thinking that.
bleeding. There's no positive there's no like evolution musically from doing that. They're not even in rhythm. They're not playing to a metronome. They're just sporadically like in pain, which is like metaphorically is an interesting message, but like practically that's just insane and silly and stupid.
For the movie. Yeah, definitely for the movie. I remember thinking that, like, as a drummer watching them, it's like, they're literally, it looks like they're just having like a seizure on a drum set right now. Like,
even doing anything.
yeah, like, I was like, I mean, that was definitely one of those scenes that was for the dramatic, for the movie effect. And the other scene that I ended up was kind of thinking about that is when he's got that bucket of ice next to his hand, and he like dips his hand in there, and it's like that bucket is full of blood. It's like, man, either A, I need to start rehearsing a lot harder, or B, this is dramatic as hell for the movie, because I mean, I've definitely rehearsed and had like some blisters come up on my hands, and then maybe like, oh, there's a little blood on the drumstick afterwards. But I mean, in that part where he's dipping his hand in there, it's like that was definitely one of those scenes that is for the dramatic effect of the movie, in my opinion. Or maybe Nick's done that, and maybe I need to step up my rehearsal game. I don't know.
No, dude. See, the thing is when you do drum for many, many hours at a time, you will develop those abrasions that
Oh yeah.
can bleed. Like the the worst thing that I've ever had involving that was I was playing a show at Mishawaka with this psychedelic funk band called Zobo Maze back in like 2012.
Yeah.
And we were playing right before the headliner. And we were using this really nice DW drum set from one of the other gentlemen that was a drummer in in one of the other bands. And several other bands had played before us, but there was still a headlining show after us, and possibly a show even after the headliner. And I hit my knuckle on the cymbal, and I really didn't think much of it at the time, but I continued to play for like 45 minutes. And by the end of the show, the entire drum set had red blood splotches all over the entire thing with like brand new white coated emperor heads. So just like it was like a murder scene.
Oh, man.
But I would say no one ever intentionally tries to make themselves bleed while they're playing an instrument.
Yeah. I mean, that was my point. Is like, I mean, I've definitely rehearsed and played, and like you said, kind of nicked myself playing
Yeah.
and bled a little bit. But like that scene in the movie, it's like I've never in my life bled like that. From the only thing that I can think of that even comes close to that was I was playing a show out in the Springs, and it was like a 420 like tattoo 420 festival kind of a thing. And we got there like super early, and this is my own fault, but I had a tattoo on my knuckle that I had been meaning to get touched up, and they offered to touch it up for free like an hour before I went on stage, and I was like, oh yeah, cool, why not? And it was like in theory that was a great idea, but then like halfway through the set I looked down and I was definitely bleeding pretty good.
Yeah.
You're an idiot for making this life choice, but here we are anyways.
Yeah.
Jor-el,
movie-
any thoughts on that scene?
Well, I would just say the movie is not realistic at all. Like,
Yeah.
I think I agree with what Nick said. It works on a metaphorical level, and everything in the movie that happens is used to build up this one like thematic idea that's throughout the movie. None of it would happen. Like, there's no way you'd like be able to throw chairs at people. There's no way when he gets in the car accident, like he would let him go on stage as he's like bleeding all over the drum set before he's even gotten started playing. There is like the movie is not realistic at all. But I think part of that is just to serve the idea that the film is trying to convey and build the dramatic tension. I mean, there's so many things in the movie that don't make sense. Like if he's trying to sabotage, like so in the last scene, right? He invites him to go to he invites him to go to this like new concert that he has at the hall with all the other musicians, right? And then he turns to him and he goes, I know you were the one who got me kicked out.
Dude.
And then he has him like
Oh,
try and play a drum song without giving him the sheet music. You would never do that to someone. Not only that, if he actually did that, he's also sabotaging himself, by the way.
Yeah, that's what I was
like, that doesn't make any sense at all. Like, even just simple stuff, like saying, oh, it's like, the BPM is like 203 or something. Like, there's no way you'd, like, ask a drummer, like, oh, yeah, give me this exact BPM. You'd, like, have a metronome going, like, I feel like, I don't know. Have you guys ever been asked to play at an exact BPM?
Or you'd be counted off at the conductor.
Yeah, you would count it. You would, like, count it off.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, I've had like a click, and it's like, oh, hey, put the click to like a certain BPM kind of a thing, but not like that.
Yeah, I've never heard like a drummer go, oh, it's 152. All right, do that.
Yeah.
In all rehearsals, there are no rehearsals that are not to a metronome, and they put a metronome on this big siren speaker in front of everyone, and you hear this insanely loud click for hours and hours and hours on end. But you don't get to have that in live performance. You're literally going off the drum major who's at the front, which you can barely see. But just going off of the whole metronome thing, there are very, very few people on the planet that have what's considered like perfect time, similar to perfect pitch, where someone can know the rhythmic pace of a certain BPM almost to sheer preciseness. And like, there's no way any random, jazz drummer is going to be able to. You know what the funniest part though that gets me, that is so upsetting as a drummer watching this, and I hope you can relate to this, Shane, is they play the song that is in 7, and the conductor, Fletcher, Jake Simmons' character, he counts them off in this way, and that's when he actually throws the chair. But he counts them off and goes 5, 6, and expects them to start with
Yeah.
type of count off. I've never
Doesn't give them a full. He doesn't give them a full anything.
never heard them, and so he's trying to count them off in 7, but a conductor will never count you off saying 5, 6, and that's just unheard of in the drumming world. Even in 7, conductors will still count you off in 4 because that's what makes the most sense. So I just thought that was so funny. 5, 6, and then he doesn't get it. He's like, "What the hell?" And then he's like, throws a chair at him. "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And it's like, dude, no one would understand that count off.
If he's trying to match his tempo, like, why does he like go to the practice room and then try and play as fast as possible? Like that is the one thing that does infuriate me a little bit. Like, good drumming isn't just playing as fast as possible. That's what the movie sometimes, like, I feel like is trying to say. Like when they're having the like the drum off, he's like just trying to do shots as like high as possible.
Yeah, exactly. Or play like as quickly and sporadically as possible.
Yeah.
No rhythm or no musicality to it. That's unrealistic. And the other part that really kind of got to me was at the very end, they pull out a chart on the kid, on Neiman. So this will happen in the jazz world. If you play, I used to play all the time down at Dazzle Jazz in Denver while going to school playing jazz. And oftentimes your director or whoever is even leading the performance, say you're playing in a trio or a quartet, they'll bust out a song from the real book, which is like a big book of all jazz standards. And they'll say, okay, we're going to bust out, Hawaii 5-0, or we're going to bust out this song. And it's kind of a surprise on the fly, but you're trained as a jazz musician, especially a drummer, to be able to get a chart thrown at you and be able to improvise over the chart and still be able to play with it and follow along. You train for years and years to just sight read charts and just be slammed with a new thing that you've never seen before. So I think it's kind of unrealistic for a guy who's made it this far to be playing in a pretty high level jazz program in college to get a chart thrown at him and to completely just like not know what he's doing and stop playing, at the very end.
When you said Hawaii 5-0 for a second, I thought you were going to say Hard Ticket to Hawaii. And I was like, man, that is not the movie I thought you were going to say.
No.
Sam, I know there's a scene you keep calling me and I answer and you go 1, 2, 3, and then you act like you're going to slap my face.
I don't remember doing this. I might have done it one time, but
I think you've done it twice.
It was like the next day. Yeah.
So what about you, thematically?
I mean, knowing from what like Nick has like taught me when like I was younger and like he was still learning and showing me stuff, I thought it was interesting. Like I thought it was very interesting. It was definitely not. I don't know. It was weird, interesting, and I was just like, I didn't know what to think about it. Wasn't as bad as Birdman. It didn't hurt my head at the end of the movie where I was just like completely like I don't even know what to think of it. Like I still don't, and it's been like weeks since I've watched that, and I'm still like I don't know how to take that movie. Like it was good, but like what is?
Though I will say we watched one of the bonus features on here called Timekeepers, and they have a bunch of famous drummers on there.
Oh, nice.
And when you watch them and some of the stories they tell you, it's straight from the movie. Like the movie was definitely inspired by some of theirs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to try to check that out.
I think there's a lot of stuff in the movie that's like one of those things might have happened with one person at some point.
And then they just combined them all.
Yeah, and they combined them.
Yeah.
And it was also like dramatized, you know.
Well, I mean, I feel like for a lot of movies and stuff, I mean, they have to dramatize it a little bit, you know, or else it wouldn't be as entertaining. I mean, like for a drummer, it would be really entertaining, but they kind of got to dramatize some stuff to make it more of a broad audience kind of a thing, so more people will enjoy it. You know.
But I don't think it's a movie about drumming. Like, you know what I mean?
Well,
It's
no,
not.
yeah,
It's not,
no, definitely not.
It's a movie about like being obsessed about art, you know,
Yeah.
and the lengths that you go to in order to achieve what you think is perfect, right? It really has nothing to do with drumming. This movie. Like,
That's the similarity that I see in it with Drumline, because in contrast, like in both movies, when you look at the drummer actually performing, they're not accurately playing what you're hearing. And so they don't go that far into detail. They're not finding someone that is an actor that is also this phenomenal musician. You know, they're using specifically this actor to portray this story. But then when they're playing and what you're hearing, especially as a drummer, you can notice very quickly, like, okay, he wasn't playing that at all. Like his hands were just like doing this shit. But then
Yeah.
you hear this very awesome performance coming out of it. So I agree. It's really not about drumming. It's about like the experience of getting to the top.
Yeah, it was actually one thing I googled was if the actor, I'm blanking on his name, the
Miles
main
Teller.
dude, yeah, if he actually played drums at all, and it was like he actually
he totally
apparently
did.
was like no, he I mean I don't know about in the movie, but he actually had apparently drummed like earlier in his life, and he took a couple lessons to kind of brush up on it a little bit. But I mean, he wasn't like
He can drum. He's just not that amazing drummer.
exactly, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah. But that was like the first thing I googled after. I was like, does this dude actually play the drums at all? And I was like, all right, he at least actually kind of knows what he's doing a little, you know.
This
But
is enough to
yeah.
like fool most people.
Yeah, enough to fake it, you know.
And it's like when I was 10 years old watching Drumline with Nick Cannon, I was absolutely brokenhearted when I found out that he doesn't know shit about drumming and can't drum really at all. And for all the parts that they recorded of him drumming, I had to rewatch the movie and notice that they never include his face shot when he's doing a really complex drum piece.
I haven't seen that movie in years, but I'm gonna have to do that now. I'm gonna have to rewatch it.
It's not even like that good of a movie at all, but
No,
just a
but
funny comparison to this movie.
I mean, that's kind of how like movies in general. It's just movie magic, right? Sometimes you get someone who can do everything, but even if you get someone who can do everything, in general they like bring out like stunt people or they bring out the people who can do it. I did a TV episode of this investigation discovery thing, and the person I played like was supposed to be like an incredibly good skateboarder, and I can skate and like enough. I could stand on the skateboard and like move it around, but they got like a stunt double to do all the tricks for me, and so it's the same thing like Drumline, right?
Yeah.
Like you can see me, you can see me like like all like moving on the board, and then you'll see a shot and it just cuts down to like chest level all the way down, and it's just like triple kick flip, like thing, and all the and it cuts back to me.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of how they do it. A lot of times movies will do that for insurance reasons as well, because they don't want like their lead actors to get hurt.
Yeah, unless you're
Even if you can do this stuff, like even
Tom
like someone like Tom Cruise who like does like a lot of his own stunts.
Yeah.
There are stunts that he won't do. He's got stunt doubles.
True.
And it's because like it costs a lot less if those guys get hurt than if he gets hurt.
Yeah, very true.
It's just like a financial decision.
Well, and it's got to be harder too to find actors that can do everything. Like just because right. Say like singing in movies, right, where you have like maybe Val Kilmer or Austin Butler singing theirs, but then you get Rami Malek who didn't sing in Bohemian Rhapsody, and it doesn't mean it's any less of a film.
It just matters, does it take you out of the movie, and does it do enough to bring you out of the movie? I always find the best movies.
Mm-hmm.
You can always find mistakes in them, but you won't, because you get suckered into the narrative.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I try and go back and rewatch movies. again, like, oh, I'll rewatch the movie and maybe I'll like watch what they're doing with the filmmaking and how the camera's moving and all these different things. And if it's a good movie, I'll get like about 12 minutes in, and the next thing I just start watching the movie, right?
Yeah.
I'd say personally, as a drummer, that when they do that sort of movie magic, just being so passionate about like rhythmic music theory and being passionate about rhythms and fast, just fast music. When they do that, it really does take me out, because I'm like, man, like, why didn't they, and it's one of those psychosomatic things where you're like, why didn't they just get someone who could drum really well? But then you're not really thinking about like, they have to get an actor to play this part,
Yeah.
Shane, what about you? Do you get taken out?
What's the question? I'm sorry, I was messing with Sam over here. We were.
Whoa. Sam, time out. No, when you watch like music movies, do you get taken out if they're not like perfect? I know we kind of touched upon this in your interview, but
I mean, yeah, yes and no. I mean, I kind of agree with what you guys have said. All like kind of what Jor-el was saying. Like, I will at first, but most of the time I'll just get to the point where I'm like, you know what, whatever. It's a movie. We're just gonna look past what just happened, and it may or may not be realistic. We're just gonna enjoy the movie, to be honest.
We'll move on to another pretty important aspect of a movie, and that's acting. We've kind of touched upon it a little bit, but Jor-el, how do you feel about the acting, at least with Miles Teller and J.K. Simmons?
Well, J.K. Simmons is phenomenal in this movie. He's amazing. He's really, really good. I know when they this movie started off as a short before it became a feature film, and J.K. Simmons was part of the short, but Miles Teller wasn't. So they had another actor, and then they ended up getting him later on. I think they both do a really amazing job. I'm not the biggest Miles Teller fan, and it's from some of the other stuff I've seen, but I think in this movie he's amazing. I think all the actors in this movie do really good. I really like this movie overall. I don't know if that's coming across. I think the writing is really good. I really like the filmmaking. The actors, I think, do a really, really good job. Everyone's great. The only issues I have with this movie would revolve around like maybe it going a little bit over the top in some instances, which ultimately I think is fine. And then as I was rewatching it, the girl that he dates, like briefly, I just feel really bad for that character, and I don't know why she's dating him at all. Right, and that's more of a writing perspective. I'm like,
never really even got any conclusion on that. It was just that he got screwed over by the teacher mentally so bad that he then totally destroyed their relationship, and that was the end of that.
Yeah, she basically just serves the narrative, which so she doesn't really have any sort of depth at all. Which I guess is, it goes back to kind of, I think if you take this movie for what it is, which is a really tight narrative that's about one thing and one thing only, and it's just really intense and it builds tension over time, and you think of it like that, almost like if you think about it as like a musical piece, right? That just like a musical interlude that just starts and it's just like one driving rhythm that just gets like louder and then gets quieter, it gets louder and gets quieter, and gets louder and gets quieter, and it's just like it's like a really stripped down kit, that doesn't have a whole lot of instrumentation or busyness. I think that's the thing that I like about this movie, and I think if you take it for what it is, then you can appreciate that. There's one of my favorite Shakespeare plays is Othello. And the reason I like Othello is because it's literally only about one thing, and everything in the movie is about this one thing. There are other Shakespeare plays that have all these side plots, they have all these other characters, they have all these other things that make the world richer and do add other elements. But there's something I think that's like very pure about just a narrative that's literally just about one thing. And everything in the movie is about it. Like from a storytelling perspective, everything feeds back into that one thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely understand. Like I thought there'd be like a conclusion with her story too.
Yeah.
Like cuz at least
Yeah, that
there's
was one
like
thing that definitely bothered me. It's like
yeah.
they just kind of there's no real story arc ending there between them. It's just kind of, and I mean maybe that's the point. It's just they break up and that's
That's
just the
sad.
end of it, you know?
Well,
She's just
that's
another one of those typical like Hollywood female characters that is just literally there to serve
Yeah,
the
yeah,
man's
yes,
purpose,
yeah, right.
the main man's purpose in the movie, and she doesn't have really any depth or anything. She's just like a really nice, cute girl.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that you feel like terrible for. You're just like, man, he is being an asshole to her. Like for no reason. She's like, so you're telling me for sure I'm gonna hold you back, and he's like, yep. You're just like, wow.
Well, I think what's interesting about that is that I feel like the whole point is that there's really no real resolve. You don't know whatever gets resolved even between him and the teacher. All you get of resolve is that one final look that he gives him
Yeah.
of acceptance, if you will. And
Yeah.
it's sort of up to your interpretation of, do you think that that was even a resolution at all? And it's kind of clear that there was nothing really resolved between him and that girl, but that's sort of like the
Sequel?
common theme in the movie is that there's like you can work as hard as you want and may never get any real resolve from that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well, I
at the
think
end, I was
I
kind of
like
thinking, I was like, man, I mean, and I don't know, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. I kind of doubt it, but like, it'd be cool to see if there was like a sequel where like maybe the dude becomes some big jazz drummer, and maybe the conductor is like his conductor, but they just like hate each other's guts,
Yeah.
and it just gets darker and darker and darker, and something like that.
I don't know.
Hollywood,
I don't want a sequel. I
Jor-El,
don't want a
there's
sequel. I don't want a sequel because I just love the way the movie's structured.
I
It ends
agree.
on
I
this
just
note because the
yeah,
whole movie is right is like, is it worth it? And it ends
yeah.
on that note, and you see the final performance, and then you make that decision
Yeah.
as the
Yeah.
audience.
That's where
And
my head
I
goes.
can't
Oh, how could they
like
make
you
the
said. I
next?
like that the girl thing isn't resolved. I like that the
Yeah.
girl thing isn't resolved. She's just such a she's not a complete character.
It's a
Yeah.
creative
Yeah.
choice to do that because it's somewhat ballsy. It's somewhat of a bold choice to introduce this character that really you get no actual satisfaction out of. She's just kind of this plot piece, like you said.
Yeah.
So I think
But
that it's a creative artistic choice
It is
because it
and,
goes
and none of the characters are developed at all. Like again, like this goes back to like my point of this is a very tight narrative. It literally only has two characters in it. It's only about one thing. Like I said, it's literally like this. It's just one thing, and if you're okay with that one thing, then it's really interesting.
Yeah, I totally agree with the no sequel. I've definitely seen movies like Donnie Darko where the sequel is just the worst thing I think I've ever watched.
Oh, 100%. That's where my mind always goes there. It's like if they were to make a sequel, what would it be about? You
if
know what
they
I mean?
make a sequel, they better go all out on the darkness factor
That's
and
what I'm saying. Like
better
it
get
could be
murdered
cool.
in a brutal way.
I
Like
agree that they
some
shouldn't. Like I
horrible
said, this is where I
accident
go with
happens.
things. But yeah. No, I mean I agree. They shouldn't do it. That's just always where I go. I'm like, what else could they do?
Whiplash 2, the real Whiplash, and it's like everyone's neck breaks on stage. Crazy.
Yeah, the story of the car that got wrecked and the hobo who found it.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Exactly.
Whatever happened to that guy?
Yeah, and he never really got any sort of leaving from an accident charges.
Oh,
Leave-
I'm sure he did. I'm sure. That's
Right,
gotta
and
be
then the
fun.
teacher got like no rape. I mean, yeah, he got like fired, but you would think, especially after the student like hangs himself, and there's all these abuse charges coming out, like there'd probably be some repercussions on him. Like he ain't going to that
Yeah, I
jazz
guess
festival
that's
at the
fair.
end.
Yeah, that's fair.
Just
He's
on
probably in
that-
jail.
On that specific note, I had put down in my notes about the movie that the teacher completely lied to the students, just bald-faced, and said that Sean Casey had passed away in a car accident
Yeah.
after truly showing himself worthy of music and being the only one, worthy for the teacher to say, he was a phenomenal musician and I just thought you should know that. And he died in a car accident. And then we find out later in the movie that character committed suicide and hung himself from depression from the pressure of that exact teacher. So
I believe that teacher even, and maybe I'm wrong, but I believe he even tears up and cries a little bit, you know? So, like...
But he's just trying to, like, save face and tell them that he got in a car accident because he's in denial that
Yeah.
that what he's...
Or is he just that crazy? I don't know. I go to South Park with this, where is he just that Cartman person that he just completely flips it to where it's like, no, he didn't kill himself because of me. This is what actually happened.
Yeah.
You know, is his mind that
trying to
screwed
just
up?
flip the narrative?
Yeah.
It's also a great piece of foreshadowing, right? He says car accident, and then
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it is, huh?
It's a very well written script.
Mhm. Well, and J.K. Simmons just fantastic. Obviously,
He's
was
great.
awarded for it and definitely deserved to be.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
fantastic. Miles Teller, I think, did good. Definitely, probably one of my more liked Miles Teller performances.
Yeah.
After
I love
Fantastic,
how
it was
everyone
fine.
in this movie is an asshole too. Like, no, not everyone. Actually, that's not a lie. All our main characters are just like blatant asshole. He's an asshole.
Besides,
Like he's just as much of an asshole as the fucking guy who's an asshole to him.
Mhm.
Everyone just kind of sucks in that movie.
I mean, the dad's nice. Like there's other nice characters. Not everyone, but you know.
Yeah, there's like
I
three.
guess
The
the
dad.
girlfriend was nice, I feel like. But
No, yeah, there are.
I
Yeah,
liked
old-
how he was you know, on like rushing his ass off to make it, and his friend calls him and he's like, "Where are you, man?" And he's like, "You know, the other guy's gonna play it," and he's like, "Tell him he's not, motherfucker." And just hangs up the phone.
The movie is funny. There are some funny like some of the things
Oh.
that J.K. Simmons says.
I mean, yeah.
Students are creative.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
I
yeah,
can't
some of
remember it,
the
but
some of the things he calls the students, it's like,
yeah.
I probably shouldn't laugh at this, but you know, you can't help but laugh. It's like, oh my god.
It's almost like that shock. You like don't
Yeah.
expect to hear it, and I
Mhm.
think that's almost where like, was it? Am I supposed to laugh? Kind of like if you watch
Exactly.
Blazing Saddles,
Yeah.
where you're like, these are definitely bad jokes, but is it funny?
Yeah. Yeah.
Plays in Saddles. Oh man, that's a.
He's like Arlie Ernie from Full Metal Jacket. The way he
totally is.
drill instructs his students. It's like he just is constantly all about personally degrading them, and like, you know, that it's like this military drive mentality.
Fire and hose.
Well, and he brings in what's the third drummer, Ryan? He brings
The
him in.
redhead.
Yeah, he
drummer.
brings
Yeah,
him
yeah,
in not because he wants him in the band, just because he wants to make even more pressure on Miles Teller.
Yeah.
And it's just like, man, you feel bad for that guy too, because he's like
Yeah.
all hopeful.
Yeah.
And there's just
And he's
for
just
some reason 3 drummers now. Like
the pawn in the agenda to try to create the next Charlie Parker.
we talked about acting. What about like music? Because I was trying to think about this today, and I think the only music we really hear is what's being played. Like it doesn't have like a like most movies have a
I was like an ambience.
yeah.
I was trying to pay attention to that and couldn't really notice specifically.
Yeah. You know, I didn't notice it until you
It's
I guess,
interesting
pointed
that-
it out. But yeah, there's really not a lot.
Yeah. All right, shortest
Yeah.
shortest segment. Yep.
I think that the
Well,
music,
yeah, I mean, you're right. Yeah.
I think the music itself that is played in the movie is pretty classic traditional big band jazz, which is fun if you like big band jazz. It's a very difficult style of music to play, and to be super in sync with all of the other musicians, especially some of the more complicated songs. Whiplash itself is a super insanely complicated song. That specific drum solo that he does at the end has been transposed and put onto sheet music for drummers to learn. And I've seen several drummers on YouTube try to undertake that specific drum solo and play it note for note, and it's an extremely daunting task. So I think musically, it's always fun to watch a drummer shred up the drums. It is funny when you hear them shredding it up, but see the movie magic happening and notice it very blatantly. But to hear it and to kind of imagine that that's exactly what he's doing with his hands is like, it's always cool to just see really talented musicians.
Yeah, well, and musically, like you were talking about, I actually just was thinking about this when I was Googling after the movie. The soundtrack for the movie, a lot of it isn't like actually in the movie itself. It's all like Whiplash and Caravan and like those big jazz songs. And I believe the soundtrack actually even won a bunch of awards just on its own. So there's really not a lot of like what you were saying, a lot of like the ambient music and stuff. It's all just music that is played from all the jazz bands. And I was kind of listening to some of it afterwards, and I mean it's actually a good soundtrack if you guys go back and give it a listen. It's enjoyable to check out.
It's very intense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely am a fan of jazz. I mean, after my experience in New York at the jazz bar, like it's hard not to fall in love with that. I mean,
Yeah.
especially there where you have a bunch of like independent musicians that are just there because they love it.
Yeah.
Like it's
New
just so
York is the real place to go if you want to, if you're an aspiring jazz musician like Andrew Neiman's character, um, Michael Teller, is that who you said it was played?
Miles Teller.
Miles Teller.
Miles Teller. His character, you know, people that aspire to be a musician at the top like that, most of them either end up going to New York if you're a jazz musician, and if you're more of a fusion contemporary type musician, you'll most likely end up in LA. But that's where all the like top of the line jazz musicians are, is New York, and mostly on the East Coast in general.
I hear New Orleans is a pretty good spot to go for that too, but I mean
Definitely.
I'm not as in. I mean, I like jazz, but I mean that's just I've heard a lot of good things about New Orleans.
Yeah, so my music partner in that electronic project Hyperloop, he studied bass guitar and jazz guitar at Loyola in New Orleans.
Okay.
It's an amazing place for jazz and all kinds of music. I got to go down there when I was at Denver School of the Arts when they were doing Mardi Gras. Our high school band instructor took us to New Orleans for Mardi Gras.
What?
All right.
And
Sounds like fun.
and you know, everyone, there was literally a band playing on every single street, and some of them, there was like 10 bands on the street. Like on Bourbon Street, there was probably at least 50 bands on a single block, and it's just full of music. Absolutely incredible experience. Sorry to get off topic though.
no, I love hearing it. You know, New Orleans music, it's all good.
Well, what? There's Nashville. There's New Orleans.
Yeah.
There's all those different towns.
Nashville's getting pretty big too as like a music scene.
It's
Yeah,
big.
Yeah,
in the country.
Nashville's more like a country kind of a place, but I mean Nashville's got it all too, you know.
I mean,
Well,
they got rock and roll.
I'm from Monterey, so I used to go to the Monterey Jazz Festival every year growing up.
Oh.
You can hear a lot of really cool jazz music.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah, there's so many different types of jazz. It is very. You're right. It's a very specific type of like big band jazz. You know,
It's instrumental jazz, you know, because a lot of really popular big band jazz back in the time that big band was super famous, like in the 40s and 50s, a lot of it had a dedicated singer, you know.
Yeah. Well, let's say yeah.
Classic singers, Frank Sinatra. You know, we could name off a ton of those, but this is like strictly dedicated to instrumental big band, really like, you know, complicated jazz pieces and all these crazy time signatures. I remember in the movie they did like a close-up shot of the sheet music of Whiplash, and you see the time signature in like 14/8, switches to like 7/4, switches, you know, goes all over the place. And I love super complicated music like that.
So we will move to another portion of filmmaking, which is cinematography. Which, in rewatching this, it's very subtle, but I think it's really, really good cinematography. Like, there's some pretty beautiful shots in here. Like, I forgot how good it looked until we rewatched it the other day. Jor-el, more from that filmmaker perspective, like being in film and stuff. What do you think?
I think the cinematography, also the editing itself, is really, really good as well. Which editing a movie like this must have been crazy, because there's so much of it is is editing, like when you talk about like being authentic or any of that sort of stuff, trying to edit like a movie like this where you're trying to make it look like, because some of the musicians are actually playing all this stuff, some of the musicians aren't, and then trying to sync up when the edits are going along with the moments in the songs. When it must have been like insane. I love the cinematography. It's really great. I noticed, again, I think this goes back to that kind of idea that I brought up earlier about the focus narrative. A lot of the shots are shot pretty wide open, meaning they're with a really shallow depth of focus. And so it really pulls your attention directly to the people in the shot rather than the environment around them. There's a lot of really cool shots, inserts of people playing instruments during the songs. There's also really just shallow depth of field when you're seeing the individual characters act. And so I think a lot of that adds to the atmosphere. That's the main thrust from a cinematographer standpoint. I'd have to go back and analyze like specific shots and specific things, but that was the main thing I noticed as I was rewatching it. Is it's shot very very wide open, meaning the aperture is all the way open, which lets in the most amount of light, which makes the depth of field really narrow. And so it really narrows your focus to the thing that the camera's trying to show you rather than the environment around it. So it's more focused on the people and the hey kitty, and and the whatever, all the insert shots of them playing and stuff like that.
Yeah, some of those close-up shots are just like you can see the drumstick coming down, and then there's the beads, or what's supposed to be the beads of sweat, like just going up. Like I don't know, that got me.
And the
I was just
color
like, it's
palette
beautiful.
too. It's very kind of yellow and orange and blue and kind of almost. It has a very thriller color palette to the
Mhm.
way that it is. They graded it and lit it and everything like that. It almost has like that kind of green, yellow, blue, almost like horror thriller feel to it, which is really
Yeah, almost
Yeah,
similar
it's kind
to
of-
like the Assassination of Jesse James's palette,
Mhm.
where it's just like kind of earthy tones, but like more of a darker take on it.
Yeah. Well, it's hard for me to compare those two because it's just such a different environment. One is like
Right,
the
wide open,
city and
vast.
indoors, and one is like outside.
Shane,
Yeah.
you were saying something?
Oh, I was just gonna say, the one shot that kind of got it was kind of put on some very thrillery vibes, and I feel like they did it at least 2 or 3 times. Is when the dude's playing, he's rehearsing, and it's like they're kind of slowly going down the hallway, and you can kind of like you can hear him and you can kind of see him, and they're kind of like slowly creeping towards him, and then you get up on there and he's just going crazy. And I just feel like that's like a very thrillery kind of scene that just builds up to that one thing. That was the one cinematography kind of thing that really grabbed me for
I feel
sure.
like you really stay like again the way the shots they use and the way they use the camera. You really feel like you're on this journey with this character. You feel
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you're really there with them when he's in moments that are really intense and kind of scary. The camera's a little bit shakier. When he's like in the car accident, like when and he's running, the camera's also with him kind of
Yeah.
running when you really kind of like follow this character down this journey in the way that they kind of place the camera.
I feel like they did such a good job at bringing me personally back to the jazz room, just in school. The way that they did the shots of specifically the practice rooms and the rooms where they're rehearsing all together as a band and kind of that small concert hall setting, just really immersed me very well and like reminded me of really what that felt like to walk into a room, just an empty room where all of a sudden, once the time hits that moment, all the people rush in, all these passionate musicians ready to play music. And so I thought that was great in terms of the cinematography in the close-ups, like you were saying, where the stick is hitting the cymbal and you're getting these beads of sweat and specifically beads of blood in the final drum solo. It doesn't actually show him ever actually bleeding out of any part of him, but it shows blood on the cymbal. It's kind of like the blood, sweat, and tears metaphor of like, this is what I did to get this. The cinematography, specifically on the part where he's beginning to get this bad abrasion right here, right where the fulcrum meets, which is like right where your drumstick is really going to be causing a lot of trouble. And he starts to try to put that band-aid over it, and they show the close-up of that. If you've been in a drumming situation where you're bleeding really bad, the band-aids won't last, you know, because you're moving at such aggressive speeds. And so so he's putting on more and more band-aids, but it really made me feel that pain of just how brutal it is when you're desperately trying to be better yourself as a person, and your physical limitations are getting in the way of that, if you will.
Sam, what about you for cinematography?
I mean, I thought it was really good because, yeah, I mean, all the shots were like really well taken and like showed a lot, like you guys explained, with like the tear sweats like being bounced off the cymbals every once in a while and building up. And the shots of like them sweating, and then also my always all-time favorite after like I've seen Nick play is like all the drum faces people make while they're playing. It's always like it's always the best. Just everyone has like a different face they make, and like for different parts, like you can just like kind of tell. It's always enjoyable. Like every time I'm out at concerts now, I'm always watching the drummer and like watching their faces. Even like even guitarists and everybody
Oh, yeah.
kind of makes like
Guitarists
a
and
face
bass
for
players.
does certain things. Like
It's
everybody has like their thing.
It gets into that kind of like euphoric meditative state that you can get out of playing music, you know, this sort of like almost like a higher state, like a meditative nirvana, if you will, where mentally you're kind of on this musical plane that has transcended normal humanity, if you will. And I think that's why a lot of musicians will express themselves in such silly ways, because you're not even like thinking about what you're doing with your body. You're just really enjoying this like higher form of communication that is music.
Yeah, and then maybe we'll talk more about like the actual like music aspect of like playing and stuff. I mean, Jor-el, you're in a band. Like, how does this compare? Obviously, very very different, but like, tell us some of your experiences about being in a band.
Versus like, sorry, versus what? Like, how does this compare at all?
A little bit, but more just like tell us more about like actually being in a band and like what it's like.
Well, I mean, I just think this is nothing like being in a band. The only thing I could think of this like being in a band is just like being obsessed about something, right? Like getting, you know, like this like song, and I'm like, I figured I have to like going like late into the night, like trying to come up with something, or trying to get like a certain part of a song like really nailed down and stuff. But for me, the most I can relate to this is more specifically kind of along the lines of kind of what Nick was saying when I was in like a choir in high school, and then when I like did like some jazz ensemble stuff where I did some jazz singing when I was like playing like in a band and group. And yeah, that feeling of being in the practice room totally nailed it. That feeling of how time changes, how like you get in and you set up, and that's kind of very fast, and this, and then like things kind of like slow down, and the next thing you know, it's the end of the practice. That feeling of like being in a room and then other people are playing in a different room, and you're like, well, what's going on in that other room? There's so many like little moments that I feel like I recognize from this, you know, or you know, being on stage and things aren't ready and all that. That nerves, but it doesn't feel at all like being in a band.
Yeah,
being in a band
I
feels
wouldn't
like
say so.
collaborative and you know, easygoing unless you have a certain deadline for something. And I don't know, it feels a lot more. At least the bands that I've been in feel a lot more like easygoing unless you're on like a deadline for some reason.
Yeah, see, I mean, one thing I think that they, and maybe it's just different because, like I said, I didn't really do a lot of the jazz band stuff. I do a lot of more of the rock and roll band thing, which actually, I don't know if you guys noticed, I wrote this quote down because I laughed really hard because maybe this is me, but who knows? But there was a quote, I don't remember, it was hanging on like the dude's wall, and it was if you don't have ability, you wind up playing in a rock and roll band. And I just laughed so hard because I mean, like I play in a rock and roll band, so hey, maybe that's me, maybe but it was just one of those kind of laughing, making fun of myself kind of moments. It's like, is that me? You know what I mean? But
It's such a funny thing with jazz because
yeah,
that are obsessed with jazz music will talk down to other forms of music. And it's the same thing that happened even way back in the 40s when jazz first came on the scene. All the people that were really into the classical music and what was considered traditional called all the jazz musicians, punks that didn't know how to play
yeah,
music worth a dime. So I think it's just that, I agree with you that music in general, you can dive infinitely down into the complexities of music and any style. You can have the top musicians of the world playing any style of music. So I agree
yeah.
that is funny. It's just that
I was laughing. I
that
was
cultural
laughing.
shift.
It's
But
also
one thing.
like, yeah. Oh, go for it.
Oh, okay, I would say, but one thing that just you were talking about being in a band, and one thing I feel like they didn't capture, maybe because it's different for the jazz band kind of a thing, is for me, anytime I've been in a band, whatever kind of band it was in, it's like those are my brothers, man. Those are like I'll go to war with those dudes, And I feel like in the movie they didn't necessarily like he doesn't necessarily seem to be friends with the people. It's like they almost seem like they either don't. I mean, I guess with the drummers, it's kind of a competition, so maybe I get it. But it's like it would have been cool to see if he was like maybe cool with a sax player or had like a friend or something, Because and maybe I'm wrong, but like it doesn't seem like any of them were friends, and that's where I was like, no, like any band I've ever been in, those are my bros.
I just think it's so different from the the idea of being in a band. It's a school, right?
Yeah,
It's a school
yeah,
and it's an arts program and it's a really high pressure arts program.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I
You're
agree,
right.
you would have friends. You totally would have friends. Like
Yeah,
this again, the movie's not realistic. It's like an
it's
allegory. You're
yeah.
like,
it's
That's just what I'm
saying
saying. Yeah,
it's not to say that the competition isn't there. Like specifically in classical wind ensembles and jazz groups as well, specifically in school. The fight to get that first chair position is brutal in some cases, where people are literally, at each other's throats to try to one up each other and get that position. But I would say that in general, being a musician, you have the expectation of keeping things professional. Even if you don't get that first chair position, you're still going to be able to interact professionally with those people and not like curse at them or try to bring them down and stuff. So yeah, music does bring people together in ways that nothing else can. And in contrast, I think this movie didn't portray that interconnectedness that music can bring as well. I think
that's a really good point. Yeah.
it focused more on a different concept. That's why I said I would never show this if I was a jazz teacher. I would never show this to my students, because I wouldn't want them to get strange ideas about me and about what I'm thinking in my head as a band director and a conductor. But I also just don't think it's a very conducive environment that they portray specifically to the students, because like you said, all of them seem to really be at qualms with each other, and you don't really see any connected friendship throughout the whole thing.
I really like that point about the idea that music is supposed to bring people together. And music, again, one of my favorite quotes, or it's not a quote, but just an idea. Like when you think, like I love when like Victor Wooten says like "there's no wrong note,"
Yeah,
stuff like that. Or like the movie's more about perfection than it's about music.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
it's about this idea, and some people think that music has to be perfect, which is kind of funny in jazz, right? I mean, I guess again, if you're in a school, you're in like this big band, you know, you're playing these really complex like things with sheet music, right? But part of the fun thing about music is that it's you can't quite touch it. It's not quite perfect, you know?
It's sort of this higher form of communication almost, where when two musicians are playing together and calling and responding to each other, or even just playing in sync really well with each other, there's sort of this form of bonding and uniting in doing that you really can't get with anything else in the universe. Like any other human concept, you can't get that exact type of thing that you can when you have musicians playing together and loving what they're doing.
Some of the best rock music is completely off in terms of like beep, like all this like AC/DC stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's like if you played it to a click track, it wouldn't work as well.
No, yeah.
The whole point is you're grooving together with other people. You're having this like connection with other musicians.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
So here's a question to think about. At the beginning, like Miles Teller's character is in charge of, the booklet, right? With all the
Oh yeah. He's in charge of the sheet music.
The sheet music.
Oh, and then he like leaves it at the vending machine thing.
Well, see, and that's the thing I was going to ask. Like, so he puts it down. What happens to it? I mean, obviously they're at a competition.
I was gonna ask that, dude, because nothing.
It's just gone. So did a kid in like an opposing school take it? Did Miles hide it on purpose? Did the other drummer hide it because he just was overworked, or did J.K. Simmons' character take it on purpose?
It was the teacher, in my opinion. In my opinion, the teacher took it, hucked it in the trash, and then acted all surprised and like, well, what's the problem? But I mean, that's just my opinion.
This was his whole agenda all along. He used other people. Why wouldn't he use a folder of music to achieve his ultimate goal?
Yeah, I think it was whoever wrote the script.
The director would just
it was the plot device.
Yeah, exactly.
I just thought that was interesting because, like, I mean, they do kind of mention it.
Yeah.
Like right after that, people are like, "Hey, don't touch my kit," or "Don't touch this and that."
Yeah.
And then it's just kind of forgotten.
I was listening to an interview with Christopher McQuarrie, who he wrote Usual Suspects. He like some of the newer Mission Impossible movies. And someone was interviewing like why do these certain things like happen in the movie? And he just said, so the plot can keep moving, like so that there can be a story.
I did think it was funny that guy said, "Don't you touch this fucking drum set," even though they're both in the jazz band. It's like
He's gonna have to.
It's like obviously that's the school's kit. It's not his personal kit, so it was just.
I think one of those other I don't know if I remember hearing this somewhere, but I think one of either him or the redhead or some I think he was the double for Miles Teller. Like I think he's actually like a really good drummer, and he was.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, that actor.
There was one particular scene, and it wasn't the redhead guy; it was the other guy, which I think his name was like Chance or Chase or something. But he actually looked like he was playing what I was hearing.
Yeah, he looks like you.
And I was like, oh shit, like that guy definitely knows how to drum. He's not just looking like this, Looked like he was shredding it up pretty hard. So that is cool that they added that in there.
So before we get to some more stories, we'll go around and just say, do you like the movie? What would you kind of rate it out of 10? And do you recommend it to people? Jor-el?
Well, I fucking love this movie. It's one of my favorite movies. I think it is almost a flawless movie, personally. I think like if you buy into all the silliness, right, then I think it's fantastic. Again, for the reasons I mentioned earlier, extremely tight narrative. Everything that's in the movie needs to be in the movie. If you take anything out of the narrative, the whole thing falls apart. The acting is really good. The cinematography, everything kind of works for me. I think it's great. Like I said, the only complaint that I have a little bit, well, you have to buy into it, which is kind of the same thing with any movie, right? You have to buy into the premise. There's a lot of logical leaps that you have to make in the movie, and B, that female character is just in. I think that's the one place where I kind of get pulled out, where I'm like, she's just like literally just serving this one narrative. But that is kind of what everyone else is doing in the movie too. So I think definitely go see this movie. This is not a movie that's like, yeah, this is not a realistic movie. This is not a movie about playing drums. This is not a movie about what it's like to be in a band. This is a movie about, a question, which is that in order to make the best possible art or the perfect art, like, what do you have to give up, right? And is it worth it? And I think that's part of the reason anyone can kind of relate to this idea, right? Is because it's about that. It's not really about drumming at all.
Nick, what about you?
Yeah, so this movie, I really do enjoy this movie. I think as a drummer, I really like to consider myself a very passionate, dedicated drummer and dedicated to my craft of music. And watching this movie is just super, super, super funny for me. I laugh almost all the way throughout the movie, whether it be from seeing someone like sporadically have a seizure and you're hearing this totally other thing, or from the teacher hurling a chair all the way across the room to attempt to kill the drummer, and from the count-offs, the silly count-offs, and all the little silly parts of the movie really make me laugh. But then kind of like the serious takeaway of the movie, for me, is sort of this bigger, deeper message, where if you can kind of like get past some of the sillier parts of it, and the more kind of melodramatic parts of it, it really dives into like personal motivation and dedication despite all odds, being against you, or despite your perception of how difficult things are, or just being able to kind of like progress and evolve and constantly attempt to be better. So that I really like that message of the movie, is that regardless of what comes his way, he's always willing to do whatever it takes to be better at his craft that he's passionate about. And it gets into that question of morality of, would you subject yourself to this kind of treatment? Would you put up with being degraded and mentally abused, and even arguably physically abused with the chair throwing? If so, then what truly is the limit of what you're willing to do to become the best? Like Jor-el said, what are you willing to sacrifice in the end to achieve that ultimate goal? It kind of, for me, makes me question what my own ultimate goal is, because it's like, do I want to be the best, or do I want to like have a good time and play music and love my brothers in music? And I think you can have both. I don't think it has to be this horrible, stressful type of experience. But I do think that is the element that makes this movie incredibly interesting, is adding that high tension and sort of level of impossible feeling, where you're like, is it even possible to do what he's attempting to do? But that's kind of my takeaway from it, guys.
Shane, what about you?
Man, I would say, I didn't love the movie. I didn't hate the movie either. I mean, I would just kind of overall say I liked it. It was okay. I definitely, there were things I connected with. I mean, like that struggle with perfectionism. I mean, I get it, and I've even had. I'll be honest, like in relationships, I've had issue, where it's like music is so important, and you put it so first in my life, that I've definitely, in past relationships and stuff, had that issue where it's like, no, I've got a show to play, and and it's like just how important the music is to you. And then there are also points where it's like to watch the guy fail. I've been there where it's like I've put in so much effort in bands, and then bands break up and stuff, and it's like to feel that low. I've been there before, and I mean I feel like I'm not just saying me, I feel like any musician or artist of any kind has felt that failure, and so there were things about it I liked. I'd say do I recommend the movie? I would say if I were to say that, I'd be like, yo, like if you're a musician, you got to sit down and kind of put your musical self aside and say, hey, look, we're watching a movie. You got to kind of put that to the side and just enjoy it for what it is, But I mean, I think you asked if we would do like 1 out of 10. I'd give it I'd give it a 7. I mean, I didn't dislike it. I don't know.
I mean,
Jarrell's laughing, and maybe a 7's too
No,
high.
no, I'm not laughing at you at all.
No, I don't mean you laughing at me. I'm just saying, I mean, maybe a 7. Maybe I'm giving it too much at a 7. I don't know.
no, I think that's good. I mean, anything is subjective. I
Yeah,
mean, granted, there are some movies that I think we could all agree are terrible movies. But I mean, when you
yeah,
get to other movies, it's hard. Some people aren't going to like them. Some
Yeah,
people,
sometimes movies are not your taste. I mean,
yeah.
that doesn't mean like something's good or bad. It just means sometimes different things don't connect with you.
It's artistic preference at that
Yeah.
point.
yeah.
I didn't rate it. I would say I would honestly rate it as 0 out of 10 if I was a band director trying to show it.
Yeah.
Because I think that actually could be detrimental, especially to a young mind that that isn't able to disassociate these things. That would sort of take some of this stuff seriously and maybe become become more discouraged themselves. However, I would rate it like a 9 out of 10 if you are able to put those things aside, and if you're really not looking for like musical inspiration from this movie, but rather you're looking at like a journey, a thrilling journey of a musician, but you're not like personalizing it and trying to take anything away to better yourself. Really, you're just trying to look at this kind of crazy journey and experience what it's like for those rare few that have an absolutely insane band director, which is not rare, which is not as rare as you might think.
Yeah, there's some crazy people out there.
Yeah, see, for me, I really do like this movie. Me and Sam are working on our like top 20 list of movies, and while we were rewatching this one, I was like, it might make that. Like, I'm not sure, but I think it might. It's definitely really well done. Cinematography. I mean, the acting. I mean, J.K. Simmons just kills it in this movie. Like, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well deserved
Yeah.
win there. Yeah, so I mean, I recommend it. Perhaps I'm looking more at the movie side, just because I mean, Sam knows this. I'm always super critical on like the movie aspects on anything. Um, Maybe it's because my cousin does film, and because they do film, I've kind of journeyed down that way, and I see more of the technical stuff now. But I am able to get lost in it, and when I'm able to get lost in it, I feel like that's a good movie. Because if I'm picking out technical stuff throughout, that means it's probably not a good one.
And what you see behind him is normal. The rest of his room is from floor to ceiling of just movies.
That is not
Well, I
true.
always feel bad for like any sort of like lighting designer or like scenic designer or anything like that. But anytime you go to a show and someone asks you how it is afterwards, and like you're like, well, the lighting was great. Like this.
Yeah.
It's not what they meant.
or like, oh, great venue.
Yeah, exactly.
Good spot. Real good spot. Real nice spot.
There's so much work that goes into a movie,
No,
and I
it's
think
it's an amazing project.
yeah,
It's
I
like and sometimes it is like you're like this is mind blowing. I just always feel bad because people use that stuff as like a
yeah, and you've experienced the movie side, so you know all the background. like people see this finished project, but like we were talking with your Billy the Kid, it was like two different projects that they molded into one.
Yeah.
And it came out seamlessly, but it's just so much work to get to that.
Oh my
point.
god. Well, I was just saying earlier, I don't know if Nick, I think you might have stepped away at this point, but editing this movie must have been so freaking hard. Like with the music itself, like trying to make it seem like taking the people who are actually playing the songs with the people who are pretending to play the songs, with the way that they want to edit it for like what they're trying to do narratively, along with sound mixing it, with doing it must have just been like insane.
Yeah, dude. And I was hearing you. Sorry, I just got a new puppy, and I'm just trying to watch over him. But I was gonna say I kept thinking that myself because I was like, man, like this drummer, Teller, he obviously learned how to play drums in a minimal way to all those little tiny specific scenes where it's actually him in his full body on the kit playing, to try to match those up to the music. I could see that just being like an insane undertaking.
Sam, what about you?
I definitely enjoyed it. It was an interesting journey. I mean, there was points that I laughed and there was points that I didn't like. Like one of the parts that I didn't like was the beginning where they put raisins in popcorn. Like that was weird. I was just like, I'm not a big raisin fan, so I was just like, he was throwing in the popcorn. Why?
I agree. Yeah, I think you should just stop the
I
movie.
think we could all agree right now that is just disgusting.
Trash. Trash.
But
No, I
again,
feel like that.
in that scene, right? Here's another piece of writing that's really cool in this movie, right? In that scene, right? He says, I don't like, I don't like these raisins, but he doesn't tell his dad, like, let's not get the raisins. His dad goes, well, why didn't you tell me? Like, why aren't you honest with me? Why did you, he's like, I'll just eat around them, which is exactly what he's doing, which is exactly what all these musicians are doing with this director. I think we've all been there, right? When you've been with the person of authority, right? And you're just trying to like placate the person. You're not actually having like a dialogue with the other person.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
you could see like this guy, this lead person has flaws. Like he's got some serious issues, like where he's not able to like, and that's kind of I think what happens sometimes as you're growing up, like as a person, you're not really able to articulate your needs.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're being talked at rather than being talked to.
Yeah, that's why I think the writing in this movie is just amazing. Sorry, I interrupted you, Sam. Continue.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah.
I mean, going to his like dad thing, like it didn't seem like he supported him at all throughout the movie until like the very end.
Yeah.
Because like that whole family dinner scene was.
Oh yeah, dude! I put notes about that. His comebacks, specifically his comeback to the one. I think it was his brother, right? Who says, yeah, you should come play for. Yeah, you should come play. Or he's talking about football. He's like, are you trying to say that NFL is a joke, or something like that? And then he's like, yeah, you should come play for us. And his response is 4 words you'll never hear from the NFL. And I just
yeah.
I love that as a musician because like all the jocks are always making fun of the musicians, and I did play sports in school as well, so I kind of saw both sides of it. But all the jocks are always talking about the band geeks just being the biggest goofballs and clowns and nerds, and I just thought that comeback was so good.
Also, just in American culture, that's like an American culture thing. Like music is not appreciated to the same level.
Yeah, exactly.
Just in general.
And it is funny that like the chances of him becoming a successful drummer are definitely higher than
Yeah, exactly.
getting into the NFL.
True. But no, I would rate it probably 8 out of 10. At least on a movie side. Like Nick was saying, that if I would show musicians it, I would tell them to take it with a grain of salt probably before showing it to them, like being like, this is what you should not do. But there were some like things in there that could be inspiring, but like not in any of the context that they were giving you, but like in a different way. I could see it being inspiring to some musicians, because when me and Keegan watched that time lapse things, there was I forget who he played for, but he had an instructor that was like pretty, not to that extreme, but was definitely like hard on him, and he really liked that, like that pressure of like when he was training. So like some people do enjoy being like pressured in that sort of way, and other people don't.
Yeah.
So it all just depends on the person and what like motivates them, essentially.
Yeah, it's like if you're gonna join the military, you better be expected to receive that type of treatment, you know?
I
So
mean, they don't do that no more. They give them flags. They give them flags to throw when they're being pushed too much.
oh, okay, okay.
So, just for anyone that hasn't watched it, Timekeepers is on YouTube for free.
Oh, nice. I'll have to watch that.
All right.
It's
Yeah.
pretty fascinating actually. It's almost as fascinating as the movie because you get all these real drummers, you sit them down, and then they're just talking their experiences, and you can see that they're probably consultants on the movie, and they were like throwing out some of their experiences, and then they just kind of streamlined it for one person. Like it was really fascinating. I definitely recommend that one.
I've had abusive. I mean, like I don't know about you guys. I've 100% had abusive, like, you know, situations, you know, where I've been like verbally abused, like in the arts, from, you know, whether it's like it's usually always a person. It's generally never like someone. It's usually always a person in power, right? Whether it's like a director, whether it's like you know, the leader of some sort of group or some sort of thing. But I've definitely.
I've had it for sure, man. I have had, like I said, I've had a band director throw an eraser from a chalkboard across the stage at a student. And I've had other teachers throw markers. I had an instructor in middle school that got super angry with me and walked right up to me in front of all the band kids and like physically yanked my drumsticks out of my hand in a super aggressive way and said, "Get the fuck out." And that band teacher got fired like a month later. And, you know, I've definitely had the experience with band directors. I still would say that there's like a level of malice that J.K. Simmons' character has that sort of goes far above and beyond any band director. Because even in that scenario, with her taking my drumsticks and saying, "Get the fuck out," you know, she's still trying to create she's not trying to basically like destroy my love for music. She's just like frustrated in the moment, you know. So I could see that, but she didn't like go out of her way to like completely destroy like my entire love and passion for music, which is what I kind of think J.K. Simmons' character was doing.
I had a freaking I did a voiceover for a TV show, and I literally I got so here's the thing I it was like I had to like Uber to the recording studio, and it was only like a 2 hour window, and I got there like a little bit late, and I think immediately that ticked the guy off, and I spent like the next 2 hours getting like verbally assaulted, like as I was doing stuff. I would do like it was it felt very much like Whiplash. It was a situation where I had been given no prep before. I knew I was like going there to record voices for this TV show, but I didn't know who I was going to be recording. I didn't know. I hadn't been given a script before. I hadn't done anything, and I go in a vocal booth, and they've got the script in front of me, and basically lines are appearing across the scene. I get like one chance to watch it, and then I have to do it, and I have to do it in a different voice.
Yeah.
And we only have like 2 hours to do an entire season.
Yeah.
And,
I know the voice acting thing too, man. I did a brief 6-month voice acting project for a company, and I totally relate on that.
But this guy was like an utter asshole. I've done it before with different people who were like super nice and super like, oh, yeah, I'm doing this. This guy literally like he questioned like my ability, where I'd like gone to school, like I would do a line reading, he would say, okay, do it, but now don't do it like you're going to the grocery and ordering things. Like he was like like completely like an asshole. Then he did not get fired. Then the next year they bring me back to do the next season of the same show.
Yeah.
And I have him again. He was much nicer, but he's still like every now and then he would like say something kind of mean. So some people are like that. There are some real jerks. In general, I have lucked out in terms of like who I've worked with. I haven't really had anyone, just that. It's really just been this one person. But growing up, like you were saying, band leaders, I've worked with, teachers especially who have been like jerks. I had a teacher in college who would wanted to tear down students.
Yeah.
Especially in acting classes, that happens a lot. And acting classes are weird because you're in a very vulnerable place.
Yeah.
Because you're working with different emotions and all that.
It's an interesting psychology, to think of how does a person get to that state? And I think there's some egotism involved and some self-righteousness involved, and then also not being conscientious of how that self-righteousness could actually be truly affecting the student,
No, Shane, we've talked to Sean. Obviously, we know Sean's super chill. So
Yeah, he is.
I doubt you have any experiences with him, but have you had experiences with any other people you've come across, or have you lucked out?
No, I mean, like you were saying, you talked to Sean, and Sean's not that kind of guy. You guys,
We
I'm sure
talked for
that
a long
interview will
time.
be
It
coming
was
out
great.
soon. Yeah, Sean's the opposite of that dude. And I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I took private lessons when I was younger at Allegro Music in Parker, and my drum teacher Rick, he was just a great dude. I mean, and those are really the only two teachers I've ever had musically. So no, I mean, honestly, no, I haven't had any bad experiences with people of being in power and kind of being that way.
Yeah, see, I think mine would deal less because I took improv and stuff and film in school, and I played football and hockey and stuff. Great experiences. My worst experiences probably come from when I started working day jobs, and some of the managers Sam knows the store. I'm not gonna say it because still a big company. But I just remember one of the managers found out that we did YouTube and came up to me and Josh and was like, "Hey, if you guys, want to have a career here, you're done with YouTube." And I was like, "This feels well outside the boundaries that you guys are supposed to be at."
That's kind of funny because that's almost like a personal thing, there's no curriculum or rule book that says you can't be on YouTube. That's
Right.
just them just personally attacking you and saying or having a sense of unnecessary paranoia that you're gonna expose some horrible thing that they're doing.
Oh, I mean, at some point, I definitely plan on writing a book about a tell-all book. I will change names and everything, but we get to do the craziest things. We were on edge all the time about, is it clean enough? And it got to the point you're mopping the top of the freezer aisles
Oh my
with
God.
a mop because you're just freaked out. You're
Time I saw him do that, I was just like, "What are you doing up there?" Mopping it, and I was just like, "Okay."
yeah,
I didn't.
the only
Didn't
times I've ever gotten in trouble at work was because I called out because my great grandma's funeral and my daughter was born, and I got write-ups for those.
Dang.
That sounds terrible.
Right.
I've
So
had the same shit with jobs, man. Especially managers that are just it's that classic saying of they're on their high horse and just trying to, that's what's interesting. Going back to the movie is the teacher character says that he believes that his mission was not to conduct, but that anyone could conduct. Any random ass person could come and fling a wand around on stage, but that his true mission was to push people beyond their limits and their capabilities. And that's kind of what's interesting about that mindset, even of managers at day jobs and stuff, is they're thinking that they're doing the best thing in the moment for the overall good of the people.
Yeah, your manager wants you to mop beyond your abilities.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, get up and mop the top of the freezers.
Yeah, no, Sam knows. He was there. So, I mean, you guys are in bands and stuff, so why don't we'll go around and talk a little bit about it. So, Jor-el, you want to start?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm in a 2-piece right now. We're still need to get a couple other players right now called Reckless Raven, which is kind of it's kind of like riffy rock, kind of Queens of the Stone Age meets The Strokes meets Wolf Mother kind of sort of thing. So yeah, so. We've got a live set going on, and then we're going to be recording an EP soon. I have an EP that's already out, but it's pretty bad, so I wouldn't go listen to it. But yeah, some songs. What else should I say? Smitty, you're in a rock band. What sort of? You said it's kind of like hard blues, or?
No, I used to be. I grew up playing in a rock band.
Oh yeah.
Right now I'm playing in like a country bluegrass band.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Called Kyle Chatham and the Road Shots, and we're playing like Nick and I were saying. We're playing at a place called Your Mom's House this Saturday out in Denver.
So great.
Yeah. Hey, I'll be at your mom. I'll be at your mom's house this weekend. Yeah. So yeah. I've been saying that all week, but
no, it's that's the best part of playing there.
Yeah. So we're playing there this Saturday, and then we've got another big show out in Colorado Springs in April. We're opening it up. It's kind of gonna be different for us. Like I was saying, we're a country bluegrass band. We're opening it up for this guy named Demon Jones, and he does like country hip. He's like a country hip hop rapper dude. So we might be a little bit out of place, but we're gonna be doing that. That's the next 2 gigs we've got coming up.
That's awesome, man. I'm stoked at your mom's house show.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I hear you're gonna be at your mom's house too.
I'm gonna try to make it out there to see you guys. Yeah, so I play with the Bobby Miller band. I don't know if you can see that, but it might be backwards too. But anyways,
it was good. It was good. I got it. I'll check it out right now.
We're playing Thursday, the 23rd at your mom's house. So this is to kick off the Turquoise tour. So the band Turquoise will be headlining. I don't know if you guys know them. They're kind of a bluegrassy, real blues heavy band. They're really good. But then I also play in the Cipriano band, and this is us here. And so that's Cipriano, the lead musician of that I went to high school with, and that's a trio. He plays the 2-string slide bass. It's the craziest thing. It's really cool, but we play like a really kind of like dark jazz, like a very dark, grungy kind of jazz, sort of a grungy rock type of dark jazz. And then the project that I have really dedicated most of my passion in life to is our YouTube channel called Hyperboloop. And so that's HYPERBOLOOP, like hyperbole, but Hyperboloop. Because we do a lot of looping stuff in Ableton with that project, but it's a live electronic performance project. We have yet to take it to the stage, but we've been building it over the last 3 years. Oh, wow. And we have about 14 live performances that we live streamed on that YouTube channel. So that performance would be exactly how you would see us on a live stage. So I encourage you to please check out our channel and our live performances. And I'm playing on a TD-15 electronic drum set combined with a Roland Octapad. And then actually this Roland pad right here too. This is the SPD SX Pro. And I have all those connected through Ableton Live. And then my music partner does all the DJing, and he does live vinyl scratching and also plays the bass as well. So definitely check us out. And thanks so much for having me on, guys.
Yeah. I'm not done with you yet.
Oh, I know. I just wanted to say thank you in the meantime. It's always a blast to be able to talk with you guys, and it's an amazing thing to meet new artists in the field of music and just people that are passionate about art in general. So I really appreciate you guys having me here to meet Jor-el and Shane and to meet you guys.
Yeah, no, this is one, and it really came up because when I was interviewing Jor-el, we talked about Whiplash.
Yeah.
And then I was like, me and Shannon were talking because we were like, hey, we want to have him on, review some movies. And I was like, oh, perfect, Whiplash. I was like, I wonder if Jor-el would come on. And now, and then Nick, Sam was like, well, what about Nick? And I was like, yeah, let's bring everybody on. Like, this is
everyone on board.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool hearing everyone's thoughts because everyone has such a unique perspective,
Mhm. Yeah, we recently kind of did something similar, but with film. We brought on some Billy the Kid experts.
Oh yeah.
And we did a March Madness style bracket where we try to whittle down to the best Billy the Kid movie.
Yeah.
Now, I'm guaranteed like Emilio Estevez probably hates me after this one because I eliminated him twice. but it's fun because everyone has such a different take on the subject.
Yeah.
And
the
that's
cool
what
thing
I
about
love.
art, man. Everyone has different taste, Things don't have to be your piece of cake, and
Yeah.
You're gonna be getting a
That's not
stern
wrong.
letter from Emilio, man.
yeah.
You better be waiting for that one, dude.
Just like, why did you do it? So talking about music, I want you guys to kind of like talk about some of your inspirations or the musicians you really liked growing up that maybe inspired you to get into this field. So Jor-el.
Oh man, musicians. I had a really weird experience with music. So I grew up with one parent who liked music in the way when people say they like this is gonna sound like such a dick thing to say, but like some people say like, do you like music? And they go, oh yeah, I like music. All right, and like I always make the judgment like you don't really like like you don't really like my mom listened to some folk artists, some like Bob Dylan. She listened to uh some like kind of generic kind of they're all great artists, but yeah, what's his name? Gordon Lightfoot, stuff like that. And she was an actress, and so I started listening to musicals like as a young age. So that was like my experience with music on that side of the family. And then when my parents split up, my dad was super into like Pink Floyd and Leonard Skinner and Dire Straits. Dire Straits was the big one. And so I used to visit him on the weekends, and then it was like an hour drive, like into the mountains and then back. And so on the way back home, when he was taking me back home, he'd put on all those like CDs. So that was like my earliest experience as far as like non-musical music, and I got super into that. And then I had a close friend who was super into like rock music growing up, like Red Hot Chili Peppers and stuff like that. But yeah, so I have this kind of like twofold experience with music, where it's like musicals and like theater, right? And then also kind of rock and like more pop music, and or I guess not pop, but just rock music. And then as I started to kind of start playing music, I started to kind of widen and bring those two together. And also as I started to like sing and get into like a little bit more of jazz music, because jazz music also like brings in jazz, but then also like musicals and all that sort of stuff, because so many of musicals originated from those like old like 1920s 1940s jazz songs. So I have a really wide musical palette in terms of like a lot of the stuff that I'm interested in or that inspires me. I feel like it's just such a long-winded answer, and I can't nail down any like individual like musicians that have inspired me more, except for like the ones that at the current moment like are kind of inspiring me.
Yeah. Who are you listening to right now?
About like 6 months ago, I started listening to Betty Davis. And you guys listen to Betty Davis?
Oh yeah,
dude. Oh my, she was like so ahead of her time. Like
the legend.
She's such a legend. I was like, sometimes I love when someone turns you on to an artist and you're like, how have I not heard this person before?
Yeah, exactly. Really resonates.
But yeah, Betty Davis, she's amazing. She's like a 70s like funk rock, but she's super hard. Like her vocals are like really growly and stuff. It's almost like it's like early 70s, but it's kind of like late 70s, like early 80s, almost like intensity vocals. I've been listening to her a lot. I just started listening to this band. What's their name? Well, last year I started listening to this band Porcupine Tree that I like a lot. I'm right now I'm listening. What is the name of this band? It's called Mother Mother. I don't know if you guys heard of them, but they're like really interesting band. They kind of combine elements of pop and folk, along with really interesting compositions and arrangements and stuff. They had the song super popular called Hey Loft. That's really cool. But they're really amazing. They're really interesting. What else? You guys talk, and then I'll come back if I can think of more stuff.
All right, yeah, Nick.
Wish I was more coherent. I'm sorry, guys.
No, you're good. I tend to. I mean, we've had some interviews where we kind of send them some stuff, but I think the best interviews are kind of off the cuff because they're the most honest answers.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think this has been great. Like honestly, I love listening to this. Nick, what kind of got you down the musical path, and then what are like 3 or 4 musical like musicians you're listening to today?
Sure. Yeah, and when you mentioned that, I was thinking about that because I had thought about asking, like, Sam, could you send me the questions? So I could be really prepared for it. But then I didn't do that because I was like, Keegan's probably looking for that off the cusp, real answer from your heart. So just
it would not have been asked at all, and you've just been like, "What the hell?"
Yeah, exactly. But in relation to this movie, if I was going to give my jazz influences, the biggest jazz drummer I think of all time is Buddy Rich, which you see in the movie. He's listening to Buddy Rich's CD throughout the movie. He's using him as a huge influence. Other jazz drummers along that line would be like Dave Weckl, Steve Gadd, Vinnie Colaiuta, Max Roach, so many legendary jazz drummers. But then in terms of my young childhood, I was deeply inspired. I've always really been a fan of like funk music and kind of like more of a less like lighthearted jazzy and more of kind of like a nasty grimy funk. And so my biggest influence, I think, of all time would be Dennis Chambers. He's such an incredible drummer. You'd have to see him to really understand. But he's played with pretty much the biggest musical names that you can think of throughout history. Frank Zappa, um, uh, Carlos Santana, all like the really big top of the line musicians. And then other drummers along that line, I would say Tony Royster Jr., Thomas Pridgeon. Those are a couple other names. But then what I've been listening to in recent years for quite a while is like pretty technical, odd time signature, like gent metal music, like Meshuggah, Animals as Leaders, even Tool you could consider in that realm. So drummers in that line, I'm a huge fan of Tim Young. He was the drummer of Divine Heresy. I'm a huge fan of a ton of metal music. Matt Gartzka from Animals as Leaders is one of the most phenomenal drummers of modern time. There is really no one that can replicate what he does in terms of complexity and musicality in general. For the Hypervolute project, I'm really using very big like drum and bass, like kind of drummers that are sort of emulating a very mechanistic machine-like, drone-like style, like D&B, drum and bass. So like Jojo Mayer, and there's this really interesting group that you guys could check out, that's called Clowncore, and they're like intense drum and bass, and they wear these creepy clown masks, and it's a video of them in a porter potty, but their drummer is unreal. He is
Yeah, I've seen them.
on this
Those guys are
drum
cool.
bass level of insane
Those
technicality.
guys are cool.
Yeah. And so that's kind of what I've been using recently, is like Jojo Mayer influence and some really good drum and bass drummers. But I'm open to all kinds of music. I play the blues and the sort of bluegrassy, more country rock stuff. I play like the funk, the jazz. I've played metal. I had the opportunity, all the way back when I was just 16 years old, to play 2 shows for the Black Dahlia Murder, who at that time weren't very famous in 2008. But they lost their drummer in 2008 and held auditions, and so I was able to play these intense metal shows at a young age. And I've done all the drumline stuff and classical wind ensemble, and I just love all types of music. I have an eclectic taste. I will never turn something down. If you are passionate about a certain type of music and you want to show that to me, I will always, give you my genuine opinion, and I will always be willing to hear it out, and will always try to look at the positive side of any kind of music. So thanks so much for letting me shout out my projects too.
Shane, what about you?
Man, I mean, I feel I'm more of a short and sweet guy. I mean, where are we at? We're talking about just like our influences and stuff like that.
Yeah, who you listen to, like what got
Um,
you into music, kind of stuff.
I mean, honestly, as far as like the jazz stuff and like Whiplash goes, I grew up a big Gene Krupa guy. Gene Krupa's a drummer that I used to have a shirt that had Gene Krupa on it, and I wore it out, and now it's faded, and donated it to Goodwill, and it's gone. But I mean, I grew up a big Gene Krupa and Stanton Moore were 2 big,
Oh,
like,
dude.
kind of jazz drummers that I was into. I just saw Stanton Moore a few years ago with my buddy. He was playing with a band called Dragon Smoke, and they were really cool to see. So those are kind of more like the jazz drummers that I'm into. And then just musically, I'm a big Bev Bevan guy of ELO, Nick Mason of Pink Floyd,
Oh yeah.
Jason and John Bonham of Led Zeppelin. Those are kind of my big ones. Obviously Neil Peart from Rush. But I mean he's kind of just your everyone loves Neil Peart.
Yeah.
I mean I mean shoot, I could talk about the drummers that I like all. I mean, those are the big ones that come to mind. And then as far as what I'm listening to right now, I mean, I'm my dad and I are going to see a band called they're called Bumpin' Uglies, and they're like a reggae band, yeah, and they're awesome, and they're coming to Cervantes here at the end of the month, and my dad and I are big fans, so I've been listening to them a lot. I grew up a big Gorillaz fan, and they just came out with a new album a couple of days ago, I think. So I've been listening to that. I mean, yeah, that's kind of I've been listening. Like I said, we're opening up for Demon Jones, and so I've been kind of trying to get into his music and listening to that more. So yeah,
Dude, we had Stanton Moore do a drum clinic at Denver School of the Arts when I was like a sophomore,
that's cool, man.
and he was insane. So I
Yeah, yeah.
that you mentioned his name, because there's not too many people that, when I'm like, yeah, Stanton Moore, there's not too many people that appreciate how absolutely beastly he is on drums.
Yeah, I mean, I know he's known for Galactic more, but I don't know if you've heard of his band, Dragon Smoke. I think it's
Oh yeah, dude.
yeah. I saw them a couple year. I don't remember when exactly, and they were sick.
He's a heavy hitter, man.
Yeah, they were good. It was a good time.
Now, Jor-el, obviously you do acting. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
What is there to talk about? Let's see. Oh man, well I started out acting like as a little kid, kind of in my hometown, and then I went to UCLA to go to acting school there. Graduated from there, and then my first big gig was the Billy the Kid gig, actually. And then since then I've done some other really cool projects. I did a Disney Plus movie called Magic Camp. I worked a couple days on that.
Hey, that's so funny.
Yeah. So that was really fun. I've done a couple of like investigation discovery specials and stuff like that. Like I said, I've done some dubbing. I've dubbed a couple of Netflix shows. I dubbed this Netflix show called The Protector, which is like the first Turkish like superhero show. So I'm the voice of one of those characters, and then I dubbed this the Chinese is the first Chinese animated show or anime show, which is called Scissor Seven. So I did a couple seasons of that. I have a couple short films you can go. I did this short film with a friend of mine called Zach and Manny Make a Mockumentary. You can find that online. A couple others. Yeah, I've got some projects in the works, but I can't really talk about them at the moment because they're still kind of in early stages.
Well, yeah, we'll have to have you back on once those
Yes.
come out.
I will definitely do that.
No, here's
Thank you guys so much for having me. It's so cool hearing everyone's perspective. Yeah.
No, me and Sam are super thankful you guys decided to come on. Just grateful to hear different voices, because if it's just us all the time, it gets boring. Because I think we're so like mindset. But if you could play a musician, who would you want to play?
Oh, I would love to play Bob Dylan or something like that. I feel like that'd be a really fun role to play. That would be fun to play, like a Keith.
You do a good Bob Dylan, I feel like.
Thank you. Yeah, Bob Dylan or like a Keith Richards or
that'd be cool.
That'd be fun as well. Be fun to play like one of the Red Hot Chili Peppers or something. Maybe Anthony Kiedis or someone like that. Someone from the 90s.
You'd be great at Anthony Kiedis too, man.
Yeah.
We just
so many fun roles out there. I mean, that's the cool thing about acting, right? I think most people who, at least from my perspective, people who enjoy acting, they're just excited about so many things. Like, oh, this, and then this, and this. And you just want to like learn about everything. Like, I'd want to, play all the roles.
Bob Dylan was like a huge reason the Pat Garrett film made it as far as it did on our bracket, because he's in that film.
Right, yeah.
And the whole time we were like, man, he's a better looking Billy the Kid than Chris Christopherson. And obviously we gave you the highest rating for like looks.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I definitely think you'd be good there. But yeah, I mean, Bob Dylan's one of those that's just like, I think there's just so much to cover, and he's so influential.
Oh my God, yeah. It's just insane. And just his attitude back in the day, just amazing. Like, you watch those old interviews with him, and, when he's getting interviewed by like Time Magazine and all these other like radio people, and he's just speaking his mind. He's amazing. You know what? I'd be down to play Warren Zevon. That's a musician who I feel like needs a little more publicity out there. There's so many great.
I want to play like Elton John or something.
I almost was in a Elton John music video.
Oh no!
But it was down to me. It was like so when you're like acting and stuff. I don't know if you guys know this, but basically like if you're auditioning for, you can get cast in things. There's a multitude of ways you can get cast in something, but in the traditional method where you audition, where you have an audition, then maybe you have a callback, then basically you get placed on a veil. Right, or which means they want to check your availability, which usually means like it's down to you and a few other people, right? And then you're waiting to hear back, like, is it going to be me or is it going to be someone else? And if you don't hear back, it means you didn't get it. They never like let you know usually.
Right.
It's just if you hear back. And I had an audition where it was for Elton. It was a recent Elton John tour, and they wanted to do a virtual reality. They want to do a virtual reality tour. So like you were going to go to the concert or something, put on the goggles, and it'd be like you were with him and his band like back in the day. So I auditioned to be like the guitarist in the band. and so I had to learn what did I learn? I don't remember the song, but I had to learn like one of the songs, like the morning of. I had to learn like, and so we had to go in and like pretend to play it and stuff. So I had an audition. Then I got a call back. At the call, it was crazy because at the audition, like they had the sometimes like situations just get away from you. They at the audition they had like a really good amp. They had like a really good guitar. Everything was super set up, and I actually did okay. And then at the callback, like it was just a terrible amp, terrible kit, everything. Like, and I sounded much worse. And so then they instead asked me to be like a backup dancer. They're like, "Can you dance like one of the dance like people would have danced?"
Yeah.
So, so I did that, and then I got a call that I was on avail for that, but then I didn't get it. But you know, close calls.
Dang, man. I did a Lion King series recently, which
Oh,
involved.
what? Say that again. I didn't hear it.
Sorry, it sort of sounds like it's echoing for me for some reason.
I don't know. I heard. I did a.
I
series.
did a Lion King vocal series that
Oh.
included "Can You Feel the Love Tonight?" by John. So that was a blast.
Yeah, Jor-el, you had a pretty interesting story getting cast in for Billy the Kid too, where it like came down to being able to
Yep.
ride the horse.
It's kind of how it is. I feel like every now and then it'll be like a smooth casting, but sometimes like you find out that's why I remember I've gotten better at this, and this goes back to suffering for your art, right? I remember I used to be afraid to book trips because I knew the minute I booked a trip, I would get an audition for something. And now I've gotten a lot more, healthy about that. But yeah, I had some crazy audition stories. I had an audition for the Disney thing that I did. I I cursed in the audition. I forgot the lines, and somehow they still cast me.
That was for that music camp thing, right?
Yeah, Magic Camp. Yeah.
Magic Camp. Yeah, that was like a huge thing that I saw advertised everywhere.
And
And
I have a really small role in it, but I did a couple days. It was super fun.
that's cool, dude.
Yeah, it's Adam Devine, Jillian Jacobs, Jeffrey Tambor. I met Adam Devine, super nice guy.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was a fun.
That's super cool.
What are some other movies musically that you enjoy, Jor-el?
Some other movies that I musically enjoy.
About music, I guess, like, or about a musician
I love the Doors movie, the Oliver Stone Doors movie.
with Val Kilmer.
I feel like Val Kilmer does such a good job in that movie from an acting perspective. Again, not realistic. Like not realistic, and it has a kind of I think that this movie does a good job at not glamorizing what the topic they're talking about, even though they're talking about a topic. When I say this movie, I mean Whiplash, right? Even though they're talking about an idea that's kind of dangerous, right? Of the idea of like art at like perfect art at all costs, stuff, blah blah blah. Whereas I feel like the Doors kind of glamorizes that a little bit. But I love that movie. Almost Famous.
That's a good one.
That's a great one. Yeah, those two are coming up for me. What about you guys?
I was always a big fan of Ray. And
Ray's great.
Ray's
great.
Also Walk the Line. I thought Joaquin
Yeah.
did an incredible job as Johnny Cash. I thought Jamie Foxx did an absolutely incredible job playing Ray. I'm a huge fan of Ray Charles myself. My dad raised me, like you were saying, when your parents play you a CD on the way home from something, or just one of those pastimes, and it more often than not Ray Charles would be on there. So I love those two movies. I did bring up Drumline. I would say that Drumline is nowhere near the level of Walk the Line or Ray. I still think it has value to it, to drummers specifically. But then I just recently saw the Elvis movie. Did any of you guys see the Elvis
I
movie?
haven't seen it yet.
I do like the Elvis movie.
So it was really long. I thought that God, why can't I remember his name? He was
Austin
the
Butler.
character in Castaway.
Oh, Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks. Sorry, yeah. his part playing the general in that movie, who is kind of like the overseer of Elvis. And a lot of people blame this guy for ruining Elvis's. A lot of people blame this guy for him being what ultimately killed Elvis. But I thought it was a really interesting interpretation on the Elvis story. And so that's all I can think of in terms of music movies at the moment.
Yeah, I'll say kind of just going off the Elvis thing. Like for me, that was such a fun experience overall because I took my Yaya, who's a huge Elvis fan. So Yaya, for those of you who don't know, I'm Greek and that's my grandmother.
Oh, nice.
But she grew up in that time, huge Elvis fan. So I took her and we watched it, and oh, it was so much fun because she'd be like, "Oh, I remember this event, or I remember when that happened," and
Yeah.
yeah, it really was that crazy. And we called my cousin Stephanie and my now late Aunt Irene, and we're just talking about the movie. And yeah, Austin did a phenomenal job because he had to learn to sing, like, or he had
Yeah.
to sing the vocals, and like it's
He
it's
did.
crazy how good he did.
I think he was at UCLA when I was there, Austin. I have a friend, I think, a friend of a friend who knows him. I just remembered, totally, I'm jumping in here, but I'm in a music biopic. I did this movie called Street Survivors, which is the story of the Leonard Skinner plane crash.
Oh,
So,
cool.
Okay.
which is a
That out.
yeah, you can check it out. It's check it out, see what you think. I think there's some parts of it that work well and some parts that don't as much. It was directed by this guy who's a horror film director, and I feel like the elements of the movie that are kind of, because it's about this plane crash, that are about that are kind of horror-ish are actually done really, really well, and then some of the other elements aren't explored as much. But it's about the Artemis Pyle, the drummer from Leonard Skinner, who survived the plane crash and stuff.
Wow, that's cool, man.
Yeah. Keegan, you were talking about Elvis.
I mean, I think that's
Do that.
about it. Shane, what about you?
Yeah.
What are some music movies you like?
Oh man, I mean, honestly, I think you guys have pretty much touched on all the ones at least that came to mind. The only other one that comes to mind for me, and isn't in a movie, it's a TV series that I've been watching on Hulu. It's a TV show about the Wu-Tang Clan, and that is a great show to watch. I mean, it's obviously they kind of dramatize some of it for television, but I'm a big fan of them, so I've been watching that show a lot, and that's a good one to check out for sure if you want to watch a good TV series. And they go into the music a lot because the main guy RZA, he's like, I guess, kind of goes into the Whiplash thing. He's like a perfectionist, and he like blows off everything in his life and just pretty much locks himself in his studio to work on music. So that's the one I would recommend checking out as far as that goes. Other than everything you guys have already mentioned.
Oh, you should see Walk Hard if you've seen Walk the Line.
Oh yeah,
And
Yeah, Walk Hard.
yeah.
I feel like that movie was made for musicians. It's got the most inside jokes of
It
any movie.
It does, dude.
It's great.
I have to rewatch that for
It's
sure.
so good. This is a very bad case of someone getting chopped in half with a machete.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I know Nick's seen it, but have you guys seen Bowie Moon Age Daydream?
I
No.
was gonna mention that one. I was gonna mention that one. The only reason why I hesitated to mention that one is because I've had several personal friends that are close to me that have said that they really didn't like the way they depicted David Bowie in that movie, and that they didn't feel that it was really true to how he was. But I also had friends say the same about the Freddie Mercury movie. So just a little bit more controversial, I guess, because it touches on a lot of the more really negative aspects of the top musician life, if you will. But those two movies are good too, the Freddie Mercury movie and that one that you just mentioned.
Yeah, Bohemian. Yeah, we're definitely living in like a really good time for like musical stuff. I mean, we got the Beatles series that came out by Peter Jackson. Metallica's done a couple things. Through the Never, I really like, but that's more of just it's a weird type of movie because it's them playing a set mixed in with the story of Dane DeHaan playing like a groupie while the apocalypse is happening. So it's really kind of weird. But to get to more of like the movie aspect, Jor-el, what are some movies that you'd recommend people check out?
Okay. All right. So I had to recently I went on a date with someone and she asked me my top 5 movies and I thought about it for 10 minutes. So now I've got it. I would recommend people watch. There's a really great Japanese film that came out a couple years ago called Shoplifters. I think people need to watch that movie. It's amazing. It won the Cannes Festival Film Award when it came out. It's a really beautiful movie. There's a lot of film movies coming out these days that are kind of quote unquote naturalistic, which is a little less. You tend to be less driven by plot, a little more like ambient, kind of downplayed acting, kind of like just this is the world in real time. And this movie's amazing. It's really poignant, really beautiful, really sad, but also really, really great as well. Shoplifters, everyone needs to see that movie.
I'll be right back. So you guys just keep talking, okay?
That movie is amazing. I love Being John Malkovich, that movie. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
I had seen that one time. I'd have to rewatch that.
It's a really funny movie, but it's also really creative. I really like how kind of creative and weird it is. That's a really fun one.
With Michael Cera, where he like fights off all the boyfriends of this girl.
No, that's Scott Pilgrim versus.
Yeah, I was just mentioning that. Just
yeah. As movies.
It's sort of
It's creative as well, totally. Yeah,
I felt like it just had that weird sense of creativity that a lot of other movies don't have.
Yeah, it's Edgar Wright. Yeah. I also really like. Have any of you guys seen Police Story?
I haven't seen that.
That's a great movie. That's a classic Jackie Chan movie where like this.
I love anything Jackie Chan.
Oh, dude, this is the OG Jackie Chan. This is like his big like movie. It's in Chinese. It's not like an American movie, but it's got some of the best stunts you'll ever see on screen. Yeah, it's really funny.
It's someone that can do it all. Jackie Chan is probably one of the best examples of someone that can really do it all.
Yeah. It's hilarious. There's a whole. I don't want to spoil it, but there's a whole scene where he's trying to convince I won't even say it because I don't want to spoil it for you guys. But go see it. It's great. So those two. I'm trying to pick something from like completely different genres, right? Wedding Crashers is my favorite comedy. I love the movie Matchstick Men. It's a con man movie with Nicolas Cage. Sam Rockwell's in it as well. It's really, really good. It's probably my favorite Nicolas Cage movie and my favorite Ridley Scott movie. It's a Ridley Scott movie that's not like an action movie. It's like a con man movie. It's really good.
That's cool.
What else? And Roma. Did you see Roma? Which is Alfonso Cuarón's one of my favorite film directors, and it's in Spanish, but it's on Netflix. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It came out a couple of years ago. It's kind of based on his life. It's very subtly based on his life, like growing up in Mexico. The sound design in that movie is like, it's phenomenal.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's all in black and white too. It's a really beautiful movie. Those are five movies from different genres that I'd recommend.
Nick, what about you?
So I have a pretty eclectic taste in movies, I would like to believe, and several movies that have just like deeply affected me and made me think a lot about life in general. One of those is No Country for Old Men.
Oh, that's a good movie.
That movie specifically specifically the villain of that movie, Anton Sugar. I should remember that actor's name.
It's Javier Bardem.
Yes, and he is just an incredible actor, and that movie really affected me. Another movie that I only actually saw recently that not many people that I have talked to has seen is Leaving Las Vegas.
Oh, that's a classic Nick Cage movie.
That's a Nicolas Cage movie, and the reason why that is on my top 5 movies of all time is I had a pretty unfortunate period in my life where through playing a lot of music and through interacting with a lot of different bands, I unfortunately became a pretty severe alcoholic and really, really struggled with that for around 7 years, to the point where I almost had died, many, many times. And I am graciously 2 years sober now. I have 2 years and a couple months. But if you have ever struggled with addiction, or if you kind of don't understand how dark addiction truly can be, Leaving Las Vegas is an incredible movie and really opened my eyes. Just really, a lot of things in that movie hit home for a true severe alcoholic specifically. And it is not a happy movie whatsoever, and it's really not even that fun to watch. But for me, it was one of the most meaningful and important movies that I've ever seen, just as a severe alcoholic. I'm trying to think of the name of the other movie. Maybe you can help me, Jor-el. But this is a movie starring Johnny Depp, and this is in black and white. And
Is it Dead Man?
Ed Wood.
Yes, Ed Wood. So
Ed Wood.
Ed Wood really spoke to me and resonated with me. And it's difficult for me to even explain how or why it resonated with me. But there was the way that Ed Wood was done, and just kind of the mental concepts that are displayed in the movie by Johnny Depp, and then who plays the director, and then also that kind of legendary older actor,
Martin Landau.
Yeah. And so that movie really spoke to me. And I was just kind of trying to give some sort of avant-garde. No Country for Old Men is very well known. Another Nicolas Cage movie that really, really spoke to me was Lord of War. I thought that was a super valuable movie to watch in terms of like the real world of gun running, and how serious that really gets on a global scale. And but that's really all I've got. So that's No Country for Old Men, Leaving Las Vegas, Lord of War, and Ed Wood for my movies of recommendations.
Yeah, Ed Wood's a good one. I haven't seen that movie in forever. That movie, that movie's very empathetic.
It is, man.
Yeah.
And it's so it's, for whatever reason, I just found it to be very powerful. And like when I finished the movie, I left with the feeling of like, that was an insanely well done movie. And people might not even agree with that, but that's the effect it
I
had.
agree. It's well done. You have to be double jointed and Hungarian.
Yeah. And he's playing like Dracula.
Yeah, Bela Lugosi. Yeah, didn't he win an award for that one? Like best
I think
supporting.
he might have gotten an Oscar, at least nominated. Also, No Country for Old Men. Talk about a movie that makes you tense. That movie, some of those scenes, there's no sound, and you're just like, on the edge of your seat the entire time.
All right, Shane, what are some of your choices for movies?
Man, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. When it comes to movies, I'm kind of basic. I got my DVD collection right here.
If you were gonna out a movie from that collection right now, which one would it be?
You know, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm probably the biggest Lord of the Rings nerd you'll ever.
Oh yeah.
Those are amazing
Maybe not
movies.
ever meet in your life, but I mean, I'm a big
definitely.
old nerd, so that's got to be my first and foremost, Lord of the Rings all day. And then I mean, I'm also a horror guy, and I love Halloween, so Halloween would be on there. You know, one that isn't as well known, but I'm a big fan of is Pan's Labyrinth. I don't know if you've ever seen that one. That's one. I believe it's all in Spanish, or it's just like got subtitles or something. That one, that's one that for some reason I've just always really loved. Let's see what else we got going on here. I'm a big fan of the Chronicles of Riddick series. I don't know if with
Yeah.
Diesel.
Hell yeah.
Those ones are my jam.
Huge fan.
What is that, 4? Let's see what else. You know what? This is almost embarrassing, but it's been my favorite movie my entire life. More just from the storyline, because me and my friends grew up reliving this movie. It's a Dax Shepard movie called Without a Paddle.
Yes, dude.
That's my friends and I just.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't care. You know what? That movie, everyone's like hates on that movie, but my friends and I like.
Dude, Sam and I
We
watched
were
that.
those kids. We went camping and we did all that ourselves, and it's like that was my childhood.
Yeah,
Was
get
that
in,
movie.
get in the fetal position. Get in the fetal position.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Fourth the fetal position.
I don't have to outrun that bear, Keegan. I just have to outrun you.
I mean, when my foot was broke, that was not a very hard task.
See, man, that movie is my favorite. I mean, just that movie was my life as a kid.
I
remember there's a less known, and I know this because I'm looking at it. There's a sequel to that movie, which is absolutely awful, but it's like a straight to DVD kind of a movie. And you know, like I said, my friends and I, we'd play that movie every weekend, and then we'd go outside and pretend we were those guys, you know. And so when there was a sequel to that movie that came out, we were like on a mission to find that movie. And I mean, we were like 15 years old. We couldn't drive anywhere. So we were walking everywhere to go try and find it. And, you know, we went to every store we could go and we couldn't find it. And then finally, at the end of the day, we did. And we were like so excited. And we finally got home and it was awful. The sequel was just terrible. It was like the biggest letdown of all time.
Sam, what about you? Give some recommendations for movies and.
Hey, you haven't done yours yet.
All right.
Oh, you
so,
guys have to see Dog Day Afternoon. That's another.
Oh, I was gonna say that. Yeah, Dog
Oh,
Day
shit.
Afternoon.
Sorry.
Oh man. No, Dog Day Afternoon. Oh, that's such a good movie.
It's a good movie. It's an oldie, but it holds up so well.
Oh, it's such a yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you want me to say, Sam? Tampopo, House, Haxon. Oh, In Bruges. I really like In Bruges.
And Bruges is great.
Yeah. As far as like documentaries, Free Solo, such a
Dude,
good
that one's
movie.
crazy.
Oh yeah, dude. With Alex Honnold.
Yeah, such a good movie.
Entirely.
Huge The Dark Knight fan. I know it's super basic to say, but
I just
Heath
listed off
Ledger.
a bunch of basic things, so that's
Yeah. Heath Ledger in that movie is just next level.
Man.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of movies off the top of my head. I mean,
I don't
because
know,
there's so many.
I mean, a lot of mine were probably just like Shane's. Just because Lord of the Rings is always going to be one for me. I would probably say Ace Ventura.
Yeah, dude.
okay.
And probably like Wayne's World too, as well.
Hey, well,
I'm more of a Me, Myself, and Irene guy when it comes to Jim Carrey. I feel like
Right.
Ace Ventura.
Really good.
That's also an amazing one.
That movie has some of the best
Next
moments.
ones probably would be Idiocracy and probably like Kung Pao.
Meet
I
the
thought those
Fist.
two
Oh, you guys, just off of random, I remembered a movie called The Fountain, and it
Oh, that's Darren Aronofsky too.
Hugh Jackman in it,
Yeah.
and it like changed my whole life. I would say that was the most life-changing movie that I've ever seen. Another one is Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind.
That's a
So
good
we're
one.
talking about Jim Carrey.
That's great.
The Hurt Locker is another one. Like
that's a good one.
if you're talking about movies that got me into wanting to do film, Dark Knight, The Hurt Locker, and The Assassination of Jesse James. Like the Assassination of Jesse James is why I want to make beautiful pictures, because the cinematography in that one is like my favorite. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe we'll have you guys back. We'll think of some like top 20 and we'll
Sure.
like tell each other, because I think that'd be fun. We definitely have to get back together because this was a blast. Obviously, it's gone a long time, but
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like it. So we'll have to have you back. Before we leave off, though, I want you guys to let the viewers know where to find you. So, Jor-el, where can people find you?
All right, guys, you can find me on Instagram at Vaasborg, which is my last name, Vaasborg. On that account are links to my two other accounts, which is my photography account, which is Vaasborg Photo, and then my band, which is at Reckless Raven Music. You can also contact me if you go on IMDb via my reps. If you want to reach out to them as well, or just DM me if you want to talk.
Nick, what about you?
So you can find me on my YouTube channel that I was mentioning, which is youtube.com/@hyperboloop, HYPERBOLOOP. And then you can find my band page with the Cipriano band, that dark jazz kind of feel band that I was telling you about. And that's just at Cipriano Band, CIPRIANO BAND with no spaces. And then you can find me on both Facebook and Instagram at the Bobby Miller Band page, which is the blues band that I play in with my dad and older brother, like a family band sort of thing. And and then you can find my personal page on Instagram, which shows kind of my life in general and my music projects, including my beat projects that I just do personally with my own personal compositions, as well as my vocal singing projects. And that page on Instagram is at concentrated_chemistry. And thanks so much again for having me on.
Yeah. Thank you, Keegan. Thanks, Sam.
No,
You guys
thank you.
rock.
Yeah. No, thank you guys. We really appreciate you guys coming on. Shane, what about you?
You can find me on MySpace.
Hey,
Yeah.
can they cash you outside?
Yeah, you can catch me at. I can't even say that. No, I mean, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, all that stuff. You can just look up Smittyyy in the corner here with 3 Y's. You can find all my music there. Also, like you were talking about, you can message my. I just signed on with a record label out of Colorado called Anonymous Collective, and I'm releasing an album through them this summer. So you can kind of get a hold of all those guys there on Facebook. And yeah, you can find my band, Kyle Chatham in the Road Shots, on all the social medias, the Facebooks and the Twitters and the stuff like that.
And I'll make sure to be a good host this time and make sure everyone's stuff's in the description below. But I do recommend checking out. Make sure you guys can support everybody that came on. And yeah, we'll definitely have to do this again. Maybe not about a music movie, but maybe we'll do something crazy like House. Because like
Yep.
Ethan Hawke said, that's the most being on drugs you can be without being on drugs. So
Is that the doctor one?
no,
What am I
it's
thinking
a
of?
it's a I think it's Japanese horror movie, but it's insane.
Oh,
Or we could watch Tampopo. It's a western about ramen
okay.
noodles.
I was thinking, isn't there like a doctor TV show called House or something
There
like
is.
that?
There
Oh,
is,
so you
yeah.
can say I'm out on that. I can't do no medical stuff for me, man. I'm out on that.
That's
No.
Ethan Hawke's
I haven't
second
seen
favorite piece of-
I haven't seen Birdman, so I definitely
I
will
haven't
watch
either.
that since
I
you
have very strong opinions about Birdman, although I will need to rewatch it.
Okay, so we have it
Okay,
settled.
I-
Birdman.
Birdman,
No,
I don't even know.
no,
I
you
don't
wanna
even
hear
know what
my
that
opinion?
is, but I'll watch it. Sure.
I think we should do. Okay.
Okay, we'll take a break. We'll do something. We'll do
I'm down to do
Tampopo
either.
next.
Either works for me. Yeah.
Yeah, no, we'll do. How about let's do both? We'll set them apart, but Yeah, we'll do
All right.
Tampopo at some point, and definitely got to do Birdman because now you got some strong opinions.
Yeah, right.
And I know me and Sam watched it recently, and Sam was just like the next day, he was like, I don't know what happened. But yeah, no, this is great. Thank you all, guys, and
May not
have
know
a
what
wonderful night.
Cool.
And once more, make sure to go help support all of our guests tonight. In that description below, you'll find all their links, so make sure to go check them out. I promise you guys, you will not be disappointed. All good stuff. And yeah, once again, we hope you enjoyed this rather unusual episode of Culz Reviews. We're going to call these one deep dives, and we already got a second episode planned, so stay tuned. Once that one does go live, you'll see it in the top left. For more just regular Culz reviews, though, click that link at your bottom left. For more about what we're doing here at Culz Paranormal, click that link to your top right. And don't forget to hit that like and give us a subscribe. And let us know, what did you think of the film Whiplash?